So now there is pushback. We got a bunch of pro-America frat boys and pro-America protesters showing up to these protests, waving American flags, dropping down massive American flags, and pushing back on the far left pro-Hamas and pro-Palestine groups. And it's resulted in some confrontations. But we'll talk about that story. At the same time, a lot of this is going down at University of Chicago. There's a really weird story. I honestly didn't believe it. But apparently the protesters are demanding dental dams. That one of their demands is HIV tests, dental dams, and I thought that was a joke, but it's actually on their Instagram, so okay. And the confrontation is getting interesting with people playing the song Born in the USA. So it's Friday night. We're going to have a good time. We'll talk about that. And then after we do, there's World War III, because Russia and China are preparing joint exercises focused on Taiwan. And, it's kind of worrying, I guess. And then we have this funny story. Mark Hamill was speaking at the White House press conference, and he called Joe Biden Joe-B-Wan Kenobi because that is the cringiest thing you could possibly do, and he was trying to win an award or something. I'm kidding, but, it's kind of true. Anyway, before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com, buy Cast Brew coffee because it's the best coffee you will ever have. Once you try Appalachian Nights, you will be hooked. And I mean it. Everybody keeps buying it, and then they're like, this is the best coffee ever. But I do recommend Rise with Roberto Jr. as well as Stand Your Grounds. Those are our light and medium roasts. And when you do, you're not only supporting our show, but our physical location. We're building in Martinsburg and all of our soon-to-be locations around the country. But head over to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member, because we need your support. YouTube recently took down our 2 biggest episodes. So in order to keep the show running, it's not so much that taking those episodes down financially impacted us. It's just the threat that they could nuke the show. So timcast.com, become a member, support our work, join the Discord, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Elijah Schaffer.
Yes. Well, I'm very happy they're giving out HIV tests because, as I like to say, everything on the news today is gay. And apparently we're all prepping for it. So that's good. I'm back here in the United States. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Right on. And then we actually also have Pop Culture Crisis in its entirety.
Yes. First time, I think, here. Yeah, we're raising the bar here when it comes to stories. I'd like to let everyone know that I did tell everyone about dental dams and Joe-B-Wan Kenobi. So we always look to aim for a high level of breaking news here.
Yes.
Well, introduce yourself.
And yes, and my name is Brett Dasovic. I am one of the hosts of Pop Culture Crisis, which is on YouTube Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Thank you for doing the plug so I don't have to.
Yes.
I actually was given a script, but I think I'm just going to improv this one. My name is Mary Morgan. I also host Pop Culture Crisis, and I haven't been on in a hot minute, but I'm glad to be back.
Didn't think that was going to happen when we moved out here to the new studio.
And greetings, Serge.
Good evening.
So also, don't forget, check the link in the description. Oh, actually, I think I may have forgotten to put the link in the description below, but you can go to found.ee/divine and check out the new single from All That Remains. Shout out to Phil Labonte, the homie. He's got a new song out. It's awesome. I love this song. And you guys can buy it on iTunes and Amazon if you want to support the work of All That Remains. Now that, I think this one's going to be great for them. It's a great song. I'm a big fan. But let's jump into the news. We got this from NBC News. Pro-Palestinian protest at Ole Miss ends in heated confrontation. That's one way to put it. The counter-protesters outnumbered the protesters, and the smaller group was escorted into a nearby academic building. Let me just give you that in basic language. Pro-America protesters pushed out the pro-Hamas protesters and shut them down while they were singing, what is it, Born in the USA or something? What is this one? And wokeness tweets. LSU frat boys just hijacked a pro-Palestine protest and drowned it out with USA, USA chants. The trend is spreading. Here's a clip.
USA, USA, USA.
And then I think we've got they were playing Born in the USA. There you go, American flags.
I'd like to know what Bruce Springsteen's take on this is, given that he's a lefty. I don't know what his issues are, what his views are on this.
Dude,
but
isn't Born in the USA anti-America?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's really funny. I'm pretty sure the song's critical of the United States.
Yeah. It's born in the chorus. That's what it is. They listen to the chorus.
Yeah, because to be an American, you don't have to be born here anymore at all, right? You just come over illegally. So to be a real American is to just cross the border with an NGO, some sort of like group bringing you over.
They should have played Hulk Hogan's theme, I'm a Real American. That's what they should have played.
Also, she was like, I don't mean to be rude here, but she was like just a fat black woman, and like she was being loud and kind of annoying. And honestly,
I was about to say, like, is that Lizzo over there?
yeah, but
They were-
Lizzo's
they
a
were
Calvin
so-
Klein model, so
They
you
were-
got to make sure you keep that. You're comparing her to a Calvin Klein model.
They were
woman
they were
was
calling
annoying.
this woman Lizzo. That's what
were.
they're nicknaming her. And is that a compliment?
That's a good question.
Well, I mean, it is a large black woman. Lizzo is also, and they're calling her Lizzo, but Lizzo's like a famous celebrity, so I don't see why she should be offended.
She's a model, actually.
Lizzo-
She's the ideal image of beauty. People have said that she's not just beautiful, but every single crack and crevice, which there are many of them on her body, are absolutely equally beautiful.
Wasn't there a few years ago, Lizzo said that she was like the standard of beauty too?
Yes, and recently but she also, remember, she said like she's leaving the internet because people were making fun of her, and then she was back like 2 days later.
Well, she said she was quitting. We thought we were gonna get
Generic quitting.
Yeah, we thought that she was gonna quit her music career entirely, but really she just meant she was quitting giving negative energy attention.
Well,
Whatever that means.
Yeah, but I would say with this, I watched this video, and so you have, right, this woman that looks like she's like some sort of a blow-up doll that's like halfway blown up, right? She's like, you can see the airs in part of her
Halfway.
body. Well, yeah, there's a little bit going on there. But, you know, I just feel like frat boys, this is the exact opposite they want. Like at a frat party, this girl shows up, no fat girls are getting in, straight up. And also, let's just be honest. I mean, it's not racist to say that a lot of times black women are loud in public places and movie theaters and stuff. And this woman, I don't even know if she's a pro-Hamas protester
She
or
is.
anything. Are you sure?
NBC News says she is.
Hamas Lizzo.
NBC
So-
News says?
Well,
Or she's just pro-Palestinian, maybe?
Ben Collins quit, so I'm starting to trust NBC News a little bit more, but not completely. But yes, they call her a pro-Palestinian demonstrator.
Lizzo would look
And she
better
was-
in a burqa.
This woman was look. I gotta be honest. I don't care if this woman is large, short, otherwise. I don't care about her race. It's a communist pro-Hamas protester who is going up to confront a bunch of people, a bunch of guys who are protesting for America.
Did you guys talk about
They pushed her out. They pushed out the pro-Hamas protesters, and they shut down that protest. It was a counter-protest, and my understanding, it was largely peaceful. Now the media is screaming that these guys were racist, they're insulting them and all that, and I'm kind of like, look, man, they come over and they take over college campuses. They in many instances have barred students. Many of those students were Jewish, and that's acceptable. So when these guys show up and they say no, go away, and they're singing USA, USA, the response from many of these pundits is that they're racist doing it. This is the appropriate thing. Everybody was peaceful. They simply had American flags and they were singing a song. I don't think they understood the song, but isn't this like a good outcome? One protest comes over and says, no, we don't want to do this. And then they say, okay, now the communist, you leave. And everyone's like, okay.
Yeah. So what ended up happening, at least from the video that I saw, is they went back and forth as to whether a bunch of these dudes were making like monkey noises to this lady, and there was people talking back and forth about whether that's what they actually heard. And I said the point is if they are being racist, both sides are doing it, and then you just end up back in the same place with both sides saying it's okay when we do it. I don't know if that's what actually happened. I listened to the video.
Who cares? Yeah, but who cares on this? Okay, number one, I like what CJ Pearson said. He shouldn't have been making monkey noises, but gorilla noises if he was, because we're not talking about a monkey here. This girl's big. And second of all, if he was going to be racist, like, dude, if you're going to be yapping and moving around, like, don't assume it's just because you're black that you're acting like a monkey. Like, I call my son a little monkey when he's acting wild and going around. There's been shirts, like H&M had the shirt, Mama's Little Monkey, and everyone thought it was racist because the model was black. But it's like, if you're just out there yip-yapping and waving your arms and acting insane and screaming at people, I would say all the protesters are acting like monkeys at some point or another. Like, and also, if some guy's just like mad at some like black chick for acting crazy, does that really matter? Like, this is the news focusing on like a small interaction of one guy and one girl at a large event and are trying to stoke some sort of racial tension ahead of the election. I think it's just BS in my opinion of like, this is the news hyper focusing on something that is irrelevant. Like it wouldn't matter even if he was or wasn't.
We made shirts that I am a gorilla in reference to the book Ishmael, which is narrated by a gorilla. And a bunch of leftists started claiming that our shirts were racist. And we were like, I think you're being racist when you say that. If the issue is two people show up to a protest and they disagree with each other and they're yelling at each other, and then you're like, aha, you only said that because you're racist. It's like, I didn't bring race into this. These are just guys who are, like, one guy's wearing an American flag coveralls or whatever, and now they're racist because they were yelling at her.
You know, I think that
The one guy
all
was
of these,
like hooting or
see
something.
the monkey
these
guy
like
in the back?
white Zoomer
Right, he's
guys.
like, but he was going like, ooh.
Oh, you can see.
Who's
Yeah.
the dude in blue?
All of these white Zoomer guys, be honest with yourself, they're on a college campus, so they've got probably a lot of pent-up rage and pent-up energy. They're young guys, and, you know, in their classes, they're probably being indoctrinated all the time, and they feel like they just want to take this opportunity to assert themselves for once. So that's probably why they're there, not because they care about the issues.
Real quick, though, I think there's something bigger here. Did you notice that most of the counter protesters are dudes? And I don't know if this is true for the protests, but the photos of the Hamas protesters, it's all women.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Actually, there's a lot of sexual tension here.
You think
No,
so?
I'm serious. Yeah, I think it's showing some sexual tension between Zoomers who are notoriously sexually inactive.
Hence the dental dams.
Hence the dental dams and the
that's
Plan
weird.
B and the HIV.
Did you guys talk
medication.
about? Did you guys talk about the three women who posted the pictures like May Day at the encampment?
No, what was
Okay,
that?
so it's like three women all wearing keffiyehs, and it says like May Day at the encampment. It basically says like lunch break jihad is what they're saying, because it literally is. It's a bunch of, you know, upper middle class white women who are protesting something that they don't fully understand.
They
No,
want.
no,
I think
hey.
they want to be yelled at by these white guys, and they think it's hot.
I agree. One thing that I noticed, which was really interesting, is these liberal feminist women wearing hijab and niqab. Is that how you say it?
Look at this one. She has this
she doesn't
niqab
even
on
care.
and has her belly button out in a crop top. What is
But
this?
no, but there's a bunch of women.
Oh, and then the
American-
liberal hijab is the COVID mask right there.
Well, but look, you like, this is the weirdest thing. There was this story about Katie Hobbs vetoing a bill that would ban males from competing in female sports. And then you have stories like this where someone made a point that said, notice that many of these young college-age women are wearing hijab. They're taking the keffiyeh and they're wrapping themselves and they're wearing long sleeves. Do they understand what they're supporting when they're supporting this? Because I got to wonder is it naivety or come on, like maybe they really want Sharia male?
No. It's this. Women trend towards being liberal, and we know that, especially Gen Z, and young men trend towards being conservative. If we take race as a factor, we can even look at, let's say, white people in this video, which we're looking at majority here. White men are at a much higher rate of trending conservative, and white women are trending liberal because some minorities like black are considered politically inactive. So when you look at this, I'm just saying this. When you look at this, liberal women naturally, they still want a leader. They still want strength. They still need protection. They still want someone who's around. But they're all leftists. You can forgive a woman for being liberal because literally forgiving a woman for being liberal is just like forgiving a man for being a man and doing something stupid or like breaking his bones or going out and doing something crazy. Like, women lead by emotion. We've given them the right to vote. I digress whether that was a good idea or not. And now they're out and they're, you know, parading around in public. They're going to go towards these causes because this is an emotional cause. This is something that's going to draw them
You're missing
in.
the point. Sharia is not liberal. It is fundamentalist.
They don't care. They're not thinking about the logic.
Right. So the point is,
they don't care about that.
It's one thing to lead to move towards like. So you're not saying liberal. You're saying like
they're female.
Well,
They're doing like circular like dances.
You're not talking about liberalism. You're talking about like American Democrat political faction.
They're focusing on who
It's the same
trends
thing
down.
today.
No. Like we had this discussion with Connor Tomlinson about like actual liberalism. There's post-liberals and the idea of like what a liberal society does. This is not liberal. They're trending leftist, which is generic cultism, but wearing hijab and demanding that males enter your spaces is fundamentalist. Religious. It's not liberal.
Yeah, but it is liberalism today because liberalism is detaching away from the norm into individualism. And we've seen this with Christianity. People just wear Christianity like they wear crosses or they use their churches as activism centers, especially in black churches. They become activism centers for BLM. So it makes sense that Islam would not take on its rudimentary dogma and that you would end up taking it on in this emotional sense.
But this is not liberalism.
But this is the result of liberalism. This is what happens when a nation, this is what what happened. Liberalism won against fascism, and now we fought against communism in the Cold War. Liberalism dominates the global spectrum today. All we have today are pretty much liberal countries, to an extent, minus a few that are out there in Africa and North Korea, etc. But it's like, this is what liberalism does. It detaches the individual from a group collective and gives them the right to self-interpretation.
And so now these women are shearing towards, are veering towards.
They're retarded. They don't realize
Islam
what they're doing. Yeah.
And fundamentalism and Sharia.
They have they're
They don't know they're
completely
doing that,
unaware that Muslim countries are fundamentally illiberal. They have no idea. And also, what is like the Muslim population in this country? Like 1%? They don't live around Muslims. They have no idea what is it like. They don't know anything about their religion.
And this trends
beliefs.
more towards heavy Marxist indoctrination, meaning that a lot of the posts that I saw them reading about it were talking nothing about what they're wearing or what their beliefs are, whether they are Muslim or not, but what they're talking about is they refer to Israel as a settler colonial nation. And so they're focused on that. They're not focused on how it's interpreted here. They're focused on how it's interpreted over there.
What I'm saying is, whether intentionally or otherwise, we are seeing consistently millennial and Gen Z women push towards patriarchal fundamentalist control systems.
Because it's not Christian patriarchy.
But regardless, it was wild to see a bunch of these women at Columbia putting on hijab. And I'm like, the women in Iran are ripping them off and facing the death penalty for doing this. And you're here putting them all on and then pretending to pray. It's wild.
It makes no more sense than supporting Queers for Palestine.
It was crazy when Alex Stein went and started asking people, and they genuinely do not know. They really don't seem to know that, for instance, in Gaza, if it is a crime to be gay, it's 10 years in prison if you're gay. If they catch you doing some kind of gay act. And there are many instances where Palestinians from either Gaza or the West Bank sought refuge in Israel and were granted refuge. But they genuinely don't know any of this. That's why I refer to, when people talk about wokeness and they try and say that it's like postmodernist and communist, that's all wrong. Wokeness is literally just an amorphous blob of cult-like adherence to group social norms. That's it. There's nothing there. That's why you've got women at Columbia wearing hijab now and complaining about patriarchy at the same time.
It's just rigid leftism without any thought to how far down the road until your ideas...
It's not leftism, though. Yeah. Like, we colloquially will refer to them as leftists, but I'm saying woke is nothing. An example, it's not leftist in ideology to fund war in Ukraine, right? That makes no sense. Islam is not like on the left. I'm talking about actual left philosophy and economic or cultural. Islam is fundamentalist, traditionalist, is nowhere near what the left ever espoused, showing that the woke don't actually adhere to anything. It's just a cult.
But because it's not the majority in this country, then it's perceived as a leftist idea because, again, it goes back to the idea of being an oppressed class. And here in America, since we are still a majority Christian country, they fall under that line. If the demographics shift entirely farther and then we become...
Except funding the war in Ukraine, which many of these people overwhelmingly support, is the establishment dominant majority position of the power structure of this country.
But what you're saying is the obvious. Look, there's a lot of things masked here, and we have to understand. I feel like it's disingenuous even to describe the protests as pro-Hamas or leftist. Like, the amalgamation of people that show up at these things, and you've been to these things, maybe you guys have too. You know that there's a lot of groups that show up, especially as they gain momentum and get television interest. So you'll always have initial people who might be protesting, let's say, to bring light to the Palestinians, who are being killed in atrocious war crime numbers by the state of Israel right now under Netanyahu's government. And it's atrocious. And the U.S. is partially funding that. And those people are very serious about what they're protesting for. And the right now calls them pro-Hamas protesters to discredit them and to try to take light off the IDF, to try to take pressure off of Netanyahu, and to try to push this sort of pro-Israel. Well, not all of them. So there's some people...
the protesters.
Well, I'm saying, I'll get to the pro-Hamas. There are people people who do, you can interview some protesters who do actually say that they think, and I've heard them talk about that they're, freedom fighters, and what they did on October 7th was
Those are the
good
organizers
thing.
and the people speaking at these protests.
Well, I'm talking about two different types of movements that are going on in the U.S. Some of what you're seeing on TV is mostly campus-based protesting, which of course is going to be the anti-colonial, October 7th. They don't care about Hamas. They're not actually pro-Hamas. They're anti-colonial. They're pro-oppressed, and they care about who's being oppressed. And we know, and you guys have talked about on the show, that comes out from decades of anti-white, anti-colonial rhetoric that has been taught on campuses. And they're seen as a modern colonial state. They did this, the same thing with South Africa in the 90s, the same thing, we saw this with Rhodesia. They do this with this idea of there's another, and we need to take it down, and there's an issue. So they see Israel as that vassal state. I wouldn't say they're pro-Hamas. I would say that group that is coming out pro-Hamas are the leftists in the group. They are the ones that they're not woke, but they're the ones, they're communist Bolshevik type people who just want to take advantage of a situation. But they're being used to discredit the real protesters, people who have family over there, people who've lived over there, who realize the reason why Egypt partially doesn't take them in, not just because of their history, is because they're receiving the same aid from the United States to not take them in. Saudi Arabia is receiving the aid too. So it's like, I feel like it's disingenuous on both sides because the leftists hijacked this again. It's the same bullshit that we've seen in BLM or anything. Occupy was getting co-opted too. Any real movement,
and they stand side by side with them.
Well, they don't. A lot of these people are ignorant, and they don't know what's going on.
They call it diversity of tactics. When you let someone stand up on your soapbox and speak, when you invite them to speak, and they're pro-Hamas, they're pro-Hamas. That's not to say that they're not pro other things or anti other things, but quite literally, one of the first protests they had was like a couple days after October 7th in New York. In Times Square, they stood up and said, "Our freedom fighters fired rockets," and the whole crowd erupts in celebration. There's numerous protests held by many of the same people, organized by the same people. If you go out and stand with them and clap and cheer for them or work with them, you're part of a pro-Hamas protest. This is the problem I have with how the left plays games, and especially when it comes to like a lot of social issues and moral issues in the United States, is that people are unwilling to just call them what they are or admit their position. I'll give you a good example, and it's the abortion debate we had earlier today. Pro-lifers are terrified. Not all of them. Many of them have no problem admitting what they think, and I respect it. But many of them, we had one guy on the show, and I said, "Do you think abortion is murder?" And he goes, "Well, I don't think that's helpful." And I'm like, "Yes or no? What are your positions?" There is this concern of calling them what they are. They're pro-Hamas. That is not to disparage them. It's to state a fact so we understand what they're doing. When they post photos of paragliders, BLM does, when they come up on the microphone and say resistance, when there's a man on the street interview where one woman says, "We're trying to raise money for Hamas, Palestine," they say, when Hassan Piker, who was, I don't know where he is now, the largest leftist streamer, says outright, "Well, babies are settlers, but some babies are settlers." Like, we know exactly what they're saying, and I don't see what the problem is in just being like, "Yeah, that's what they think." You can criticize Israel
but you
and
don't
say
think the context. So this is where I see to be the main issue, and this is, as somebody who I would say I don't support either side. I'll just clarify that I support American interests and American values, and I don't think supporting either side is America's interest or is a part of our values or our requirement to police either side. But I would like to say this: when they're saying they're pro-Hamas, what they're doing is they're starting with a disingenuous set of guidelines because they're trying to make it seem like this conflict started on October 7th. Objectively, since October 7th, IDF have committed more war crimes, killed more innocent people, and are the bigger terrorists. I'll just say that IDF,
like how? In what way?
The amount, 30,000 civilians bombing to get Hamas, the civilian casualty rate, the fact that Netanyahu says he's going to go into Rafah. Okay, you can say Al Jazeera, these are not reliable sources. Let's take down half that, a third that. Still, 10,000 civilians. They've killed more civilians. We can see by the apartment buildings they've flattened, by the bodies on Twitter. They've killed thousands. Let's take down 30,000. My point is I'm not coming and attacking Israel and defending Hamas. I'm not coming and attacking Hamas and defending Israel. I'm looking at this as an American.
You are.
No, I'm looking at this as American, and I'll attack both and just say, hey, clearly, these sides have a blood feud that goes back very long. It's religious. It's also ethnic. There are serious issues. As an American, a traditionally imperialist empire, in the end, like with Andrew Jackson, the land belongs to those who can conquer it. So whether it's good or bad, you can debate that in war ethics or in war court. Those who conquer the land, it just belongs to them in the moment because they conquered it, whether they did it through a just mean or an unjust mean. So in the end, if Israel wants to take the land, they will, and with the U.S. backing, it'll probably happen. But by saying they're pro-Hamas, they're trying to get in their mind that there wasn't people there before the modern state of Israel, that there wasn't land grabs, that there wasn't this whole change of the guard.
You're absolutely biased on this. 100%.
No, I'm literally saying they try to make history start. It's like the people who talk about the Holocaust with World War II. You have to look at life through a larger
You're taking
and a longer scale.
Huge leap here.
No, I'm saying you can't just start on October 7th.
And
you
and
have
we
to
won't.
go. You have to
we'll
look
start
at the
here
whole
with these
history.
protesters. They support Hamas.
Yeah, I said they're the leftists that support Hamas. Yes,
They are pro-Hamas. The protesters are pro-Hamas.
But the campus people mostly are, and I'm saying that's not to be confused. The reason why the focus is on them is because leftists are co-opting the real protests that have been going around, including in Australia, in every country, in the streets, in the tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people that are upset that the West is funding another forever war that is targeting civilians in another country, that they're upset about this.
Why is it that there is a huge overlap between the people who are angry about Israel and who support the funding of war in Ukraine?
That's a really good question. Are you talking about like the fact that leftists support Ukraine, but they also support Hamas?
The Democratic voters polled overwhelmingly side with the Palestinians in the conflict right now. And that's why Joe Biden is playing this weird game that he is. They also overwhelmingly want Ukraine to be funded, and they wave Ukrainian flags.
Because they think Ukraine's been invaded by an evil
it has
Putin.
more
And
to
that's
do
fine.
with
They are
oppressed.
They're for intervention. They are for the military-industrial complex, and they are for war. And when the U.S. just invaded Gaza, they haven't said one thing about it. A couple of them have, and I respect that.
How many days ago did this happen? The U.S.
They
invaded
announced
Gaza.
they announced the invasion was going to take place months ago, and then
But when did it happen? When did the troops hit the ground?
They're building a pier off the shore in the territory in Gazan waters. The goal, and they're already.
So I've been flying for the last few days. I'm not up to date on this.
So the announcement was, I think, 2 months ago.
Okay.
Biden said we would build a pier off the coast of Gaza, and that we would use it to deliver humanitarian aid. That's meaningless jibber jabber. You build a massive beachhead for delivering supplies to be secured by the IDF with 1,000 U.S. troops armed that are currently taking mortar fire, and who Lloyd Austin said will return fire. The U.S. has invaded Gaza. And what are we hearing about? Why isn't anybody talking about it? A couple of the protesters who are pro-Hamas, I have no problem saying it's a fact, and who are critical of Israel, have been yelling, the U.S. is invading Gaza. And I'm like, they're correct. That's true. The U.S. should not be doing this. We should not be paying for it. I'm as pissed off about that as I am about funding of Ukraine. But in all of the conversations, the funny thing, too, is even the people who are like, the people who are, I'm not really anti-Semitic, I just don't like Israel, and all they do is post Shabbos over and over and over again because they're obsessed with Jews, aren't even talking about the fact the U.S. just invaded Gaza.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, I'll go to you guys, but I was going to say, just to hit your point on why they defend Ukraine and Gaza is the same thing, because I always said it's ironic that you can support Gaza and Ukraine at the same time, because the reality is that if you understand you want to stop forever wars, you wouldn't be supporting Ukraine. However, it's been told to people in their universities, and we see it on the congressional House floor, and even in Senate as well. There's a constant conversation, like Putin is not in a military intervention. Putin is trying to annex Ukraine, and they want to invade Poland, and they want to take over Europe, and so they are the victims. Ukrainians are victims. You have these hot chicks on TikTok showing houses being blown up. It's the same mentality. It's just that maybe Westerners are not so much into Middle Eastern looking women. They don't use the same tactics.
So my question
they use the
is,
dead children.
I consider myself to be mostly neutral on the issue. And the people who hate Israel tell me that I'm pro-Israel. And the people who are critical of Gaza tell me that I don't support Israel or that I'm defending the terrorists.
We just both got called Jews before the show, and I got called, I mean, this happens.
So when I look at videos out of Ukraine, be it the Russian or the US, I say it's all fog of war BS propaganda. When I hear about Israel and Gaza, I say it's all BS propaganda. But you said Israel's committing war crimes.
Yeah, I've watched them. Okay.
How do you know what those videos are? How do you know what's going on?
So I need to be really careful with this because I signed an NDA on this, and I can get in big freaking trouble. I'm sorry. I can get in really, really big trouble for this. But let me just say this way, and I can tell you after the show. A large Republican organization had asked me for help on a situation to help disseminate information based off of videos of innocent people being killed and blown up by the IDF, and it was to help the IDF. They literally, they asked me to help them, to say that the students were holding an IED in their hand. And that's why what you really saw, the second explosion in this video, I have the whole request, was actually an IED exploding in their hand. So the drone did not kill the teenagers. They're not innocent teenagers. They had an IED. Well, when you slowed the frames down, you could see that actually it was 2 rockets
That's public
that hit.
video.
Yes, I know. But originally, there was an edited portion that was put out originally, before it got all public on it, and I was involved in this, and asking me to blame the kids for being Hamas soldiers. And when I shared with them that there's more to the video and that you can actually see the rockets hit, I'm not going to go any further than that. Let's just say the whole thing got wrapped up. But I've watched lies from both sides, of course, but I almost got caught up in an IDF campaign lie thing to push false information. And I saw other influencers pushing this and promoting this lie.
I did too.
Yeah. And I know that, you know, people obviously get paid to do this kind of stuff. It's very common. I haven't taken any money to lie or ever to do anything like that. If I've ever been offered money to post something, I've always verified it, double-checked, fact-checked it. And I fact-checked, double-verified this, and it was 100% a lie. So I'm saying, when you're asking me, how do I know? Clearly, there are lies on both sides, but I know Israel's lying about the amount of numbers too. So I have to go with a balance on both sides.
I see a video of what appears to be, you see 2 blurry objects that are reported as missiles from a drone, and you see young men walking, get hit by a strike. I believe 2 at once, and then there's a third. After the strike, one of the individuals is surviving and hobbling away, and there's an additional strike. The first strike, I believe, was 2. It goes down and to the right, and then as the person survived tries to run off, another strike hits. I have no idea what that is. I have no idea what those missiles are. I have no idea who those people are. I have no idea what that video is, what it's about. I know that the Israel side is trying to claim there was an IED. Hey, look, a secondary explosion. Yeah, that was another missile strike. But we don't know who fired the missiles. We don't know where that was taken from. We don't know anything about it. So I see a video like that. Then I see a video of a guy running up to a gate with a gun, running up to a car with someone putting their hands up and putting a bullet in their head. And I don't know what that is either. I know what the camera footage says about it, and I know what is likely to be the case. I think it's reasonable to assume Israel, which they've done this a lot with drone strikes, have blown up some people. That's probably what happened. The guys running up to the car likely was Hamas. That seems to make the most sense. When it comes to the conflict between Israel and Gaza, and all the videos that are coming out and what everyone is claiming, I go, wow, that's a war. Why is anyone arguing the morality to me? I don't want to pay for it. I stop right at the U.S. should stop funding all of it. We shouldn't be giving humanitarian aid to Gaza. We shouldn't be giving military aid to a wealthy nation with a budget surplus like Israel. But for some reason, it always falls down to people devolve into, let's make a moral argument over who is doing wrong in whichever side.
Because we are funding it, whether I believe in it or not. I'm going to stop talking because I feel bad because I shouldn't be talking this much. I just meant we are funding it, so I do give a damn, and I can see the videos, and I do see the explosions, and I can watch the fact that there are at least hundreds of bodies in some of these buildings being collected. I've watched the evidence, and I've been in Australia for the last year and a half. I've started my family there. We have a very pro-Israeli media. No, of course we do. And even they have slightly lower numbers than what's coming out from Al Jazeera and these numbers. But we had Australians just killed the other day. And my family's Australian, if people don't know that. So obviously I care. I'm involved in politics in both countries. Shit on by the media in both countries too. So I'm used to the shit. I'm used to coming up against people. I would say that the media in Australia is more pro-Israel than the media in America, which is insane to even say. But that being said, they're still pretty honest about what Israel's doing in the war crimes, and the people of Australia generally are not the leftists. They don't support what's going on because they see that, again, Australia is funding this as well. So
let me tell you one quick thing. MSNBC and Fox News are completely aligned on the issue.
Oh, I know.
And unsurprising to anybody, when the protests happened, MSNBC and Morning Joe are criticizing the protests in the exact same way Fox News is. I think that says a lot.
I say, why do you think that is?
That they're both aligned with it. It's U.S. military policy. Exactly. There was a great post where they said, when whiny liberal college kids go out in the street and scream defund the police, it's meaningless. The U.S. deep state military-industrial complex does not care at all.
Well, it's just weaponizing everyone's supposed moral outrage,
But
right?
when you go out and say that the principal U.S. foreign policy of the past several decades or a couple generations should be dismantled, and that could actually cost them funding in politics, they're like, this cannot be allowed to spread. The easiest example being TikTok is only getting banned because donors called Democrats and said they're criticizing Israel.
Like when you mentioned, like it's not a leftist it's not a leftist idea to want to fund war in Ukraine. Well, it's when you talk about protesters on campuses and the less politically informed, what you're talking about are people that just see Putin as the enemy and want to fund the other side. And right now, when it comes to Israel and Palestine, they just see Israel as the enemy, so they want to fund the other side. It's not through any knowledge of politics or what's going on in the world. It's simply a bunch of U.S. citizens, when we talk about the people here, who are vaguely informed and see one side as the good guy and one side as the bad guy. And that's really just the dumbing down of the American public more than anything else.
I don't care about. I care about Israel as much as I care about Myanmar, as much as I care about the Uyghur Muslims or Sudan and all that.
You should care more because they control the United States government heavily. They're not the only group, but AIPAC has such a heavy influence that they even claim that they can just whip votes in Congress. And we've seen with TikTok, like, you should be more concerned with Israel, not because you need to care about Jews, which I know where you stand. I know people judge you, and I think it's unfair. I think a lot of the comments are unfair. That it's Shabbos Goy, this or that. I don't think you're being unreasonable in your position. And I think it's fair if people want to get rid of Jewish institutional power, or they believe that, or they don't believe that. I don't care. Believe whatever you want. But I know you make a distinction between getting rid of Jewish power, as said by people that would be like Groypers or maybe Nick Fuentes, in more of this institutional power that they see, versus not caring about Israel. However, you don't have to care about any of these other takes that are more controversial to realize that the government of Israel, or at least special interests connected to the government of Israel, have so much, if not the most influence of any private held lobby group in the entire country. That should alarm you, because look, Facebook is committing election crimes, as we saw in the last election. Not only that, they're stealing and selling our data in the same way TikTok is. They're censoring our free speech, and yet we're attacking TikTok. Why? Because, well, Mark Zuckerberg is Jewish, and they already censor anti-Semitic information and language. And so when you see with TikTok, I'm talking Facebook already censors this kind of stuff.
What does Mark Zuckerberg being Jewish have to do with TikTok?
He would care about that. He does care about that. He would care about stopping anti-Semitism. He cared about intervening in the election. I think if you're Jewish, why would you not care about anti-Semitism? Why would that not bother you? Like,
wait, so
if I was white and I own a platform, I probably wouldn't tolerate like anti-white hate.
TikTok is getting banned because Republicans several years ago were concerned about liberal leftist influence, and the Democrats said screw off. Then when October 7th happened and the videos shifted very heavily towards pro-Palestine, donors immediately made some phone calls to Democrats, and Democrats said, you got it, we're on board. And then the Uniparty united and said, okay, now we agree, we'll ban TikTok.
Beware any time a bipartisan bill passes that quickly.
Yeah, it means they hate all of you.
Yep.
But the banning of TikTok, I think, is still, it's not getting banned. It can never be banned. The bill wouldn't ban it. It's first, forced divestment. Second, it would restrict it from US servers, which means it would still exist, but it'd be a URL instead of an app. Or if it was an app, it would be an APK you download on an Android device and can't get on an iPhone because iPhone's a closed system. So it would not ban it. But that being said, I believe forcing a TikTok to divest is still a good thing. Just because the motivations Democrats have for it is bad doesn't mean we should accept China having control over a large portion of our digital economy and what our young people are seeing.
Republicans support it too. Like, I think AIPAC, their influence is universal over Republicans and Democrats.
Republicans wanted it banned because it's promoting woke garbage. That was the initial move.
I think I think it was Ted Cruz, right?
Right.
Yeah. Then who was it that was said? They said both things. Like, it's allowing woke garbage and the criticism of Israel. Was that Ted Cruz, or who was that? Was that Cotton who brought up both in his speech?
I don't know. I know.
I know there was on both. I think the woke was just a shield. Like, dude, it's like how the left uses election interference and election meddling to censor people, and they always have, and the right's using this woke thing to try to do the same thing. In the end, these politicians do the bidding. I mean, I was just in DC the last couple days. These politicians do the bidding of the people who fund them. And I know they're not the only lobby group, AIPAC's not, but what we can see is this. A lot of things are happening bad in America. There's probably a lot of interest groups, but let's at least not be in denial, and you're not. AIPAC has a unhealthy amount of power in American politics, they should be registered at least as a foreign agent or possibly banned entirely. I mean, I'm all for kicking out lobbyists entirely, but this is foreign interests lobbying our government. I think AIPAC, if you want to call it, should be at the very least registered outside.
The additional point I was making was I care about Israel as much as any one of these other countries. And in the United States, I'm concerned about who our politicians are, what they're funding, who's funding them. And so I'm very much concerned about there's a challenge in, say, like Citizens United. I don't like the idea of super PACs. The idea that a wealthy individual can just get $1 billion from a fundraiser from a dinner because it doesn't go to their campaign. It goes to a private entity that can then choose to just spend money as they see fit. The argument from the conservatives traditionally has been, it's your money, you can spend it, no one can restrict you. And my argument is we restrict people buying and selling things all the time. And so perhaps there should be some kind of limit on campaign expenditures, regardless of if it's going through the campaign or not. Because what happens then is China can funnel money into the United States through a shell corporation, which then funds. And this is happening. It's literally happening. It's not just Israel, but all of these countries. Certainly, you can make an argument AIPAC is disproportionately powerful. But we know for a fact that China provides resources to various companies, which can then fund super PACs and get any politician they want in. And not only that, China sends spies to sleep with American politicians too. So we have this foreign influence across the board. I care about all of it equally. When I say I care about Israel as much as Myanmar, I'm saying it all matters in the context of the United States and what the United States should be doing, not we should be having an argument over the moral acts of a single nation.
But we all like.
I don't care if Israel bombs any country around it. I care that we are involved and tied to this country, and we shouldn't be. Yeah. So the argument should be, hey, let's not be involved in their war. Let's not fund their war. They can bomb whoever they want.
But that
won't
happen because this is where I feel like a lot of people misunderstand something. Is when we talk about 5 countries together, which I'll remind people, I've spoken, the first time that I publicly spoke about foreign investment in America, not only did I get in trouble by my seniors, but I also had articles written by left-wing magazines about how not criticize the other 4 nations I talked about Iran, China, Russia, North Korea, talked about Israel and, trying to manipulate our country, our culture, our politics. I only got articles and got in trouble for mentioning Israel is this. We all universally agree that Iran is the enemy for doing that. When Iran meddles, they are enemy. When Russia meddles, they are an enemy. When China meddles, they are an enemy. It's like we put Israel, we mention all these other countries that do it. Yeah, enemy countries that are literally trying to destroy our country, that are undermining the sanctity of our nation. Why is it then when we talk about Israel doing it, we're like, yeah, but it's our greatest ally?
Because they're deferential.
I just feel like they're our enemy. Like I don't think they're an ally. Maybe they're not an enemy. I'll take that back. I don't know if they're our enemy because I don't know militarily to what threat they actually pose or what extent they would like. But I will say AIPAC to me is an enemy organization because it is taking advantage of our politicians to serve foreign interests and not our local interests.
It's the United States and the military-industrial complex and its global corporate, whatever you call these people, that effectively have the disproportionate amount of influence. European nations in NATO are deferential to the United States. We saw this with the Tucker Carlson Putin interview. Putin said that he had asked Bill Clinton if Russia could join NATO, if they would, and Clinton said yeah, and then came back and said no. And the reason why? Russia would have too much power and could outvote by teaming up with other countries and then create a bloc which rejects U.S. authority. It is strange to me that there are people who legitimately believe that Israel controls the United States, not the other way around. Israel is not an enemy of the United States. It is a vassal state of the United States used as an outpost for military weapons development and surveillance in the Middle East because the U.S. is hell-bent on conquering all of these countries. If you look at the map, Iraq and Afghanistan, what were the reasons we invaded those countries? Well, we say it's because we had to hunt down the terrorists after 9/11, so we had to go into Afghanistan. And then it turns out that Saddam Hussein actually was helping them, and he had weapons of mass destruction. Weird coincidence, by the way. Those countries surround Iran from the east and the west. People like Michael Bolton cheering on TV saying, one day we will celebrate in Tehran. You then get Ukraine tied into the mix. You get Hunter Biden, Burisma, the energy deals. You get the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. All of this is a rather easy to paint picture of what the U.S.'s goals are pertaining to Europe and the Middle East and why the U.S. is hell-bent on making sure Israel stands. because Israel is where we put all of our eggs for our Middle Eastern campaign.
I disagree entirely, though. And look, I want to be fair to you, though, because I know we disagree on this, and I'm not saying you're fully wrong, but here's where I think we can split. So if people don't know this, the current head of the online integrity of Australia, she tried out for the CIA, didn't make it, and now she's trying to cause the greatest restrictions of free speech anywhere in the world, currently based in Australia. We know Australia is where the World Economic Forum tests their global policies. They have the strictest lockdowns, etc. Well, the second largest CIA surveillance facility in the world outside of the United States is where? In Australia. Australia is actually a vassal state of the United States. Now, what is Australia concerned about right now? Australia is concerned primarily on our media about rooting out anti-Semitism. I'm not joking. They've recently created so many hate speech new laws, including they've outlawed the sig heil. You go to jail for sig heiling. The way you move your arm is now outlawed. Okay, Nazi symbols outlawed.
Europe too.
Yes, but this is new. And all we talk about is rooting out anti-Semitism so much that Kmart, yes, they still have Kmart there. It's like they use Kmart. It's our main store. Kmart had to outlaw. There was this big thing where Kmart got canceled because it's a white country. They like to eat ham. And so they made a bag this last Christmas called Merry Hammas. And the 0.4% of the population thought it was Merry Hamas and tried to cancel Kmart. And over a Christmas ornament. Christmas is not for Jewish people, so you shouldn't be offended because it's not. It's for people who believe in Christ.
That's actually really funny.
So it's like, so when you say, oh, well, the United States controls Israel, and we care about using them for our advantage. I know the United States controls Australia, and Australia is fairly open about that. The people understand. We just bought several $100 billion worth of submarines from them and nuclear technology from the United States. Why would the United States be pressing Australia to focus all of its energy in sponsoring Israel?
What does Merry Hamas have to do with Israel?
I'm saying all of our media, everything's about supporting Israel, supporting, stopping anti-Semitism. There's like barely any Jews in all of Australia. And we have American influence that influences our media, our banks, everything.
This is where the impasse happens. Woke people have pushed for over a decade gender ideology, critical race theory, and now we're seeing anti-Semitism push, but you're thinking there's a bigger conspiracy or, let's say, intergovernmental action specifically only on anti-Semitism?
No. What I think Israel, I think AIPAC has more influence over our government, which is why they have such a priority in our own governmental affairs. And I believe if you look at, I think it's now, it might even be 4 out of the 6. Maybe it's changed. Maybe it's 4 out of 7 of the wealthiest Australians are Jewish. The media companies are owned by the same people. We know that there's a lot of Jewish influence. They're very pro-Israel. I think that Israel has a lot of influence over the United States. I think the United States has a lot of influence over Australia. And I think Israel's able, despite not having popular support, the people of Australia do not support Israel. Somehow Israel is able to leverage our media and our government entirely to push support for Israel, both in sending money, weapons.
That's the United States.
Yeah, but why would the United States be using their leverage on a random country in the middle of
because
it
is the
South China
center
Sea?
of Middle Eastern operations for our entire campaign to take the energy from the Middle East.
What does Australian support have to do with that, though? I'm saying
Australia is a vassal state of the United States. Right now, we've got what do we send an aircraft carrier down to Australia? We've got
a lot of bases down there. Yeah.
We've got a strike force team up with Australia that is now patrolling the South China Sea because of the Strait of Taiwan. Russia and China are now engaging in joint drills over that specifically. Let's go back in time. There's way too much back in time to go through, but we can start with like the Mujahideen. The Soviets trying to move into Afghanistan, the U.S. trying to prevent them from getting access to it. So the U.S., Russia's moving to Afghanistan, so the U.S. supports the Mujahideen. Ultimately, it becomes Al-Qaeda. Then we get Al-Qaeda, who gets mad at us, and a lot of other stuff happens. Let's go back now to 2009. And it's impossible to cover all of U.S. foreign Middle Eastern policy, but we can start with the 2000s, Iraq and Afghanistan, a pincer move to surround Iran with U.S. military bases, cutting off their trade routes from the east and the west. We now have the Houthis in Yemen. We have the Red Sea trying to gain control over that major thoroughfare and trade route. Iran, of course, engaging in conflict by supporting the Houthi rebels. The U.S. is trying to get cheaper energy into Europe, competing with Russia. Russia controls about 20% of the natural gas going into Europe through Gazprom. That runs through Ukraine. So U.S. wants Ukraine in our sphere of influence, begins a soft power campaign. Russia resists. Negotiations happen in Ukraine. Russia loses the soft power battle, which is the U.S. supporting in various ways the overthrowing of Yanukovych, the ouster of the established Ukrainian government for a more favorable government, which is what the United States does. Now, why is the U.S. so obsessed with Ukraine? There's a lot of reasons. First, Gazprom. If we control Ukraine, we can then restrict how Russia is getting their natural gas into Europe and help offset the price gouging that the West and NATO believes is happening. Why is that important? In 2009, it was reported that the United States was planning to overthrow the Syrian government because Bashar al-Assad told the United States specifically, you will not build a Qatar-Turkey gas pipeline through our country, which would offset the Russian gas monopoly. They had about 20%, but they control a bit more than that through various means. The Nord Stream, of course, that's why the West blew it up. So when the U.S. goes to Syria and says, we want to send from Qatar through Syria and Turkey a gas pipeline, which would give Europe access to cheap natural gas and force Russia to compete, Syria responded, Russia is an ally of ours, and we will not allow you to do that. Conversely, what we will do is Russia and then Syria made an agreement with Iran to tap the same natural gas field and send the pipeline through Iraq and Syria into Europe to strengthen the monopoly. Then what happens? Whoopsie daisy, the Syrian civil war breaks out. Just so happens the U.S. thinks Assad is a warmonger who gasses his own people and needs to be stopped. They failed there. The point is, the U.S. foreign policy, as so they state, whether it's true or not, is that we need cheaper energy in Europe to allow Europe to expand to compete with the expanding Chinese economic bloc. How do we get that? The problem is most of the natural gas, which is used for economic expansion, energy, is controlled by Russia. Russia's jacking up the prices. We need to get cheaper energy to grow faster. Not working. One of the other things they're doing, mass migration. They don't care about culture. They don't care about people. They don't care about tradition. They care about numbers, growth numbers. They need people. They need energy. They're not getting the energy. They're not getting the birth rates. They're going to bring in mass migrants to use for menial labor, whatever they can do. I'm not convinced it'll work. When Syria resists, we go to war. But we still have a problem. We didn't get the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. We did not get the energy. Here's an idea. Blow up Nord Stream. Send Hunter Biden into Ukraine to work on an energy company. Overthrow the established government. Bring in a pro-U.S. government who is now going to give Ukraine to NATO and the EU, which then puts Russia in a difficult position because Russia is a gas station, basically. And then Ukraine would cut them off from the Black Sea so they can't export their oil, and they're not going to be able to charge the prices they want through their Gazprom pipeline in Ukraine. So what does Russia say? We've lost the soft power battle. NATO's expanding. The U.S. is getting what they want. We go to war. We're going to secure this and make sure they can't cut off our trade route to the Black Sea, which goes to the Bosphorus into the Mediterranean. This is, and now ultimately to the point of, why does Israel matter? It is an ally of the United States that basically lets us do whatever we want. We use it for mass surveillance and weapons manufacturing. And so the U.S. says, don't F with our foreign policy. When Donald Trump got in, they bring him in the secure room and they say, here's our plan and here's what we're doing. And Trump said no. And they said, what? We've been working on this for 50 years. You're not going to screw up our plan. They have a list of countries they want to invade. Have you seen I forgot the guy's name. People in the chat will absolutely know this is. He said, here's a list of 7 countries in the Middle East the U.S. wants to invade, and we've invaded or toppled like 5 of them, Iran being one of them. Trump made the mistake of bringing in people like Bolton. I think that was a favor to Sheldon Adelstein or whatever, and Bolton wanted to invade Iran as well. Trump goes in and says, I'm not going to do this plan. We're going to secure our borders. We're going to pull out of the Middle East. We're going to pull out of Syria. And what do they say? We will destroy you. Jack Posobiec made a great point. Mike Johnson goes into the skiff with the deep state. He comes out and says, everything I thought before walking in that room is wrong. And I hereby now say Israel #1, and I'll give them whatever they want. It is a weird deflection. And I think it is based on limited understanding. And I got to be honest, when you look at the bigger picture, and I don't know everything about this, there's a lot of confidential information I don't have, and that is the overwhelming majority of it. So I think everyone is probably wrong on this, myself included. But you take a look at something like Pizzagate, which is a really great example of how they shut down the actual calling out of empire and influence. And people noticed in WikiLeaks emails strange things saying, is it better to play dominoes on pizza or pasta? And what does that mean? It can mean a lot of things. What happens? Someone makes up on the spot, just one day it appeared, that it meant boys and girls, creating this conspiracy theory about people playing dominoes with boys and girls and whatever that meant. This pushed the actual investigators in a random direction. They all of a sudden started talking about a pizza place that made no sense with a basement it didn't have. Instead of, I think that one's really simple. WikiLeaks released an email and people were talking about doing drugs and having, crack and coke parties in DC and things like Madison Cawthorn talked about with these orgies. They didn't want people to find out about that. You throw them off the trail. What we have now is, strangely, Nick Fuentes' fan base is the most detrimental thing he has. They make sure that he can't appear on shows. They make sure he gets banned by going in and just starting flame wars that make people not want to have anything to do with him. That doesn't seem to make sense. I think there's a strong possibility a lot of it is manufactured to make sure that if someone is saying U.S. foreign policy requires a military operating base in the Middle East, and we have basically conquered this land, and now we're invading Gaza, it is all for U.S. interests. The reason why Australia, a vassal state, or any of the other Five Eyes spy clubs are doing what the U.S. wants is not because Israel is making everyone do it, but if you want to make sure no one can stop the military-industrial complex, which is the U.S. that invaded Iraq and Afghanistan, you make sure they have crazy ideas that don't make sense, that lead nowhere. And now you have people saying something that I think when you look at the math is just absurd, that Israel controls the United States, and the reason why anti-Semitism is being banned in Australia is because Israel is exerting influence over Australia instead of just all of the woke policies.
But they literally are, because they have the same kind of lobby groups like AIPAC in Australia and the Jewish Australian Association.
To say that
I can show you the organizations
are coming from Israel.
No, I'm not saying that. That's okay. I never said that. What I'm saying is this: we don't need Israel as a base. Look, we have so many bases. I think more than a dozen now in Saudi Arabia alone, surrounding the entire perimeter. Okay, this is part of the reason why they're submissive. We also have bases in the UAE. We have bases in North Africa. There's no way you can convince me with having Eastern Europe bases in Eastern Europe, in Germany, and even in the UK, and then going down that we somehow need this little stretch of land. We need bases there. I don't buy that. And I don't think that Israel controls the U.S. because there's no way that one country controls everything or everyone. And that there's a lot of senators and congressmen that actually are not bought out by AIPAC. My point is that Israel has too much vested interest in America, has too much political willpower. It's currently legal, and when every other country does it, we know it's wrong, we call it out, it's illegal for Iran or Russia. If Russia tries to interfere and buy it out, even if they don't, we make up conspiracies, put Trump on trial for years, arrest his friends for unrelated crimes, because we know how bad it is for a foreign country to be manipulating our political system against the will of the people. I believe that AIPAC, on behalf of the Israeli government and their own global interests, are manipulating our government against the interest of our people and our community, our democracy, and they need to be registered as a foreign agent or kicked out. And anyone working or taking money for them is currently working as an enemy de facto of our people, whether they were elected or not.
I would put that in tier B, which is Israel exerts influence in the United States, which it is able to because the U.S. military-industrial complex, which is actually the Western powers, NATO, etc.,
crazy.
Guidance chips for missiles are manufactured in Israel. Security, encryption breaking software and security software and a lot of cyber operations. But weapons manufacturing is massive in Israel. Plus, it's a staging base for U.S. allied operations. So the U.S. military their view of this, and this is coming from speaking to Trump administration people. It's not religious. The reason why the deep state is so invested in it is because we want to win these territories. We want to control these territories. We want to exert our influence and dominance over them. And anyone who opposes us, we overthrow their government. It's the history of the modern United States in the past 100 years. Now, if Israel is complaining, the U.S. says, well, look, we need their missiles, we need their guidance systems, we need their territory, so just tell them to shut up, we'll give them what they want. That's more the influence that Israel has in the United States, which is, I would agree, disproportionate. I would say if there is anti-Semitism is bad happening in Australia, I would equate that more with why postmodernism is emerging. Why is Joe Biden putting DEI policies at the federal level? Why is he changing Title IX? These things don't benefit Israel. They've actually caused problems for Israel. Now it's shifted, and now all of a sudden the anti-Semitism thing has happened. But going back, we can go back 10 years. We can go back to the Women's March. People like me and many others have been...
It was 10 years ago?
No, I don't. The Women's March wasn't 10 years ago. It was probably like 6. I'm saying we can go back 10 years ago or go back to the Women's March. The reason I bring up the Women's March is because the organizers were deeply anti-Semitic, like literally believed conspiracy theories about Jews specifically, not Israel. And so I and many others kept saying to people like Bill Ackman and Michael Rappaport, not them specifically, but people like them, this woke stuff is running alongside and is a component of these weird conspiracy theories about Jews. And they ignored it.
Like what? Like what weird conspiracy? Like,
so
what were they saying?
the Women's March specifically, that it's your typical, the Jews are responsible for all the world wars, that they created the Federal Reserve, and the Rothschilds implemented the system hundreds of years ago, that they created the slave trade intentionally, coinciding with, I don't know if this is the Women's March women specifically, but that they are the actual Jews, and that the current Jews have stolen the land from the Black Hebrew Israelites, et cetera, et cetera.
That was the lady who got caught on like the hot mic or something, or like a recording at her home, right?
I don't know exactly what happened, but I know that there was a woman who came out and said she was sat down and told that the real issue with everything was the Jews, and they had this meme where it showed white privilege, and it said, here's all the races of the world, here's white people, and then above the white people was the Star of David. And so these things are running concurrently. That the woke ideology, intersectional feminism, was the people organizing this, BLM, trained Marxists, are running alongside Farrakhan, who hate Jews. And now it seems like people like Bill Ackman and Rappaport, who love Israel, like specifically Israel, are now realizing that the horse they backed, Joe Biden, the left, the Democrats, and wokeness, hates Jews and hates Israel, and they're panicking because of it. Now Biden's in this weird position where he's trying to have it both ways. They called it his Charlottesville moment when he said, I do condemn the anti-Semitism, and I also condemn those who don't know what's going on in Palestine, because he's panicked. Democrats overwhelmingly, it's like, we pulled the poll from Gallup. I'll try to pull it up again. Let me see if I can, I think this is it. Democrats overwhelmingly disapprove of the military action in Gaza. So Democrats, as of March, 75% disagree. Biden's screwed. Donald Trump is saying he's going to be the most pro-Israel president, but Donald Trump's anti-woke. So the woke stuff that we saw in all these places was coming from the left who hate Jews. Maybe not literally every single one of them, but
a lot of people on the left. So like 90% of Jews are left, though. So I think it's weird for me to say this because
not anymore. Maybe.
Well, I think
76%.
No, I
vote
think
Democrat,
they are,
right?
because there's a difference between a Zionist and a Jew. First of all, which is important because there are anti-Zionist Jewish people. I would say the majority of Jews. So I grew up in L.A. I have a lot, like the guy still making my videos is Jewish. My good friend Mark Lobliner is Jewish. I have family that's Jewish. I'm from LA, okay? We just know a lot of Jewish people. And I can tell you, just like if I went into a Mexican neighborhood, if I had opinions on Mexicans, if I went into a black neighborhood and I had opinions on blacks, I can tell you this, the average person you're going to talk to isn't going to know shit about anything, okay? Nothing political. The black people are not going to know anything about anything besides maybe what they were told. Jews, that the Holocaust was the worst thing that happened. Maybe black people, that you were slaves and that white people are keeping you down. People just live in their bubbles, in their insular, ethnic circles. So I'm not talking about Jews in general. All I know is the majority of these Jews do live in liberal areas. You're talking about New York, LA. People trend left anyways. If you look at the zip codes, these people are just liberal. I don't know if they know anything going on about Democrats or Republicans. They'll probably still vote Democrats regardless of this, because these people are not informed voters regardless of their race. But I do think it's funny that we talk about this idea like 90%, well, I guess less now, but like 80-something% of black people vote left. Nearly 90% of Jewish people vote left. These people will do it out of like sheer loyalty as well. What you're talking about here is probably like informed voters who are just asked these questions. But I don't find this to be a sign that he's screwed, because you're going to tell me that Jews are going to start majority voting Republican
Michael
because of this?
Rappaport, have you watched his videos?
Oh, good old Michael Rappaport. Yeah, he's virtue signaling, I think.
Virtue signaling to who?
Just the public, because I just feel like, I don't know, Michael and I have had a lot of online fights.
He certainly felt that criticism of Trump was not as important as what was going on with Israel. This is a guy who's a New York liberal who hated Trump, and that's all he did.
Wasn't he the guy that went to Tel Aviv to show like butt plug stores or something?
I don't know.
Oh.
What I can tell you is, like with the OnlyFans model who said, I found God. A lot of people, Pearl was like, she's lying. She's just grifting. And I'm like, good. If someone decides to grift for a certain side, it shows that they think that's the right side of history. If a liberal guy, like Michael Rappaport says, voting for Trump is on the table because of Israel, it shows that he is leaning towards Trump, whether he actually wants to or not. But the grift now is pro-Trump, at least a little bit. So what I see here is perhaps many of these uninformed Jewish voters who tend to vote Democrat will still do it. The point I'm making is we told them over and over again. We said, it's so weird that this intersectional Marxist stuff that hates the Jews is being prominently pushed by so many people on the left, including the Jewish community who are voting for it. And I described it as the one ring. They thought they could wield the power of the woke and it's going to turn against them. Now you're seeing a lot of Jewish voters waking up and realizing, holy crap, the whole time we were supporting these people, they secretly were coming after us.
Yeah, but then fuck them for supporting, anti-white shit sorry for my language on YouTube. But I mean, that's how I feel passionately.
Then lose.
It's like these people were supporting this stuff. It's been anti-straight, anti-male, anti-family, anti-institutionalized. And then they're like, oh, but now they don't like us. Well, eat your cake and sleep in your bed.
Then lose. Would you like to lose?
No, I'm just saying
then take the support you can get.
Well, I don't think they really support. I think they're in self-interest, and I think in the end,
you're correct.
I mean, most people are though.
Everyone
right?
is.
Most,
then I can
we're
support
going
the
back to a morality argument now. Now it's coming back to your personal views and your morality. If you
I don't
want to
care
win,
why
you have
they're
to
voting for
coalition
Trump.
vote.
I
Yeah, but
want
then
to
I
vote
can
for
support
Trump.
pro-Palestinian protesters, even though they're leftists, because they want to get rid of AIPAC, and so do I. If I take singular
Yeah,
issues
if you
like
think
that,
AIPAC's more important than Trump, Trump's going to support AIPAC. Trump's going to support Israel. I think Trump should win.
I have a question. Do you really think that Jewish voters are going to turn out? I literally don't have an answer, so I want to know your opinion. Do you think Jewish voters, because of this, are going to turn out ostensibly higher for Trump than they ever have?
To any degree from 0.1 to 90, there's some number in there, yes.
Statistically significant, like 5% or more.
Yes.
One thing that will matter is when we get to the debates is how much this issue comes up and how good the messaging is from both sides. Like you said, Trump says he's going to be the most pro-Israel president they have.
Because he is.
But the point is, like, if those topics don't get enough attention during the debates, the point is, will that actually shift points of view from people who are still open-minded?
Let me ask you, would you vote for Joe Biden if Joe Biden came out and said Israel is not our ally and AIPAC must register as a foreign agent?
It's a good question. I don't believe politicians, so I'll just say that I wouldn't believe that he would do that.
Whether you believe him or not, would you vote for Joe Biden if you knew he was going to do that?
I'm not a singular issue voter, so I wouldn't vote on anyone based on one singular issue. But this is kind of like one of those things that's a hypothetical that would not happen because I know that Joe Biden is already bought out by these people. It wouldn't matter what he said. I wouldn't believe him. But if a politician came up that one of their main platforms was to make AIPAC register as a foreign agent and to get
and that's why I didn't ask that
Israeli
question.
power out, if there was a politician and that was one of their main platforms and it paired with other things I believe in, I would vote for them over Trump, yes.
And someone super chat us the other day that they would vote for Joe Biden if he came out against Israel. And we're talking about a guy who his brother receives lucrative contracts alongside his positioning as vice president. A guy who 10% for the big guy, whose son is.
I wouldn't vote for Biden regardless because I know he's a corrupt politician.
And I'm saying that there are people who care so much more about Israel than the United States. They would vote for Joe Biden as long as Joe Biden was anti-Israel. That is Israel derangement syndrome. Donald Trump is pro-Israel. I'm not a fan of U.S. foreign policy. I know Donald Trump is going to engage in foreign policy decisions I don't like. He still has to win.
But isn't that, then aren't the Jews have the Israel derangement syndrome too that are going to vote for Trump because he's more pro-Israel? Like, my point is people are too damn concerned.
I'm saying...
Like, wouldn't that be if you're voting for or against someone based on this one singular issue?
If you would let Joe Biden
Israel
burn
derangement
this
syndrome?
country to the ground because you hate Israel, you are deranged.
Yeah, but if you thought Trump is a psychomaniac, but you're just voting for him because at least he's going to back Israel and fight anti-Semitism, then you're the same maniac. Like these people are batshit crazy.
That's a different hypothetical, and we're talking about.
So you're saying Jews would be switching over to vote for Trump on other issues?
You're comparing two groups of people who care more about Israel, and you're saying they're the same. I'm like, agreed. Two groups of people that care more about Israel than the United States are people who, yes, I agree that's just stating what I said. Someone in this country who thinks Joe Biden is a crook, but would vote for him because they care more about Israel than the United States, I'm saying is.
If you're like a white woman wearing a hijab and praying to Allah and thinking you're being progressive, like we got it down that people are stupid, and I kind of, this is what they did to us Trump supporters in the last 4 years before Biden, was they would take a few people and archetype all of us as this certain thing. They would take the Tiki Torch March, which I don't even know what that was. I have no idea what I think I recently found out what Charlottesville was really about because they pushed this narrative based based on a few events. This is how our enemies co-opt our narrative. They take some things, they paint us in a certain picture, they run with it, they drive it into the grave, and they paint us as evil people. I'm saying to the other side, to this group of people, I see a bigger issue than Democrats, than Joe Biden. I see that Trump, and I'm going to say this while I'm a big Trump guy, Trump and Joe Biden are controlled by AIPAC and by Israeli interests. Actually, Biden less for some reason at this point. I don't know why. I actually think that Trump will try to stop the war. I don't think Trump will put up with a war. I don't think he'll put up with funding it or with letting a war continue. I do think he's anti-conflict and he'll want to resolve things in some sort of peaceable way. But I do think Trump's compromised by this, and we have to start getting honest with ourselves. Is there somebody over 40 years old in the United States government that is not compromised by Israel? Yes, there are several. There are several dozen, actually, and we could write them out by name. But that's all I'm saying. And in the end, what makes me upset about this is, look, we are in a critical time in our country. There is so much going on. But when you have Israel, why do we care about Israel? This is where you can talk about this. Well, of course, it's going to be a big issue because, the majority of college campuses, this is where you get leftists, see, well, our leaders, our chancellors, our presidents, maybe Jewish or maybe pro-Israel. They're sending our money to invest in the military-industrial complex or in these hedge funds that are investing in the military-industrial complex. This money is going to fight a war in Israel. They can do whatever they want over there. I'm trying to stand here and be consistent. Fuck Hamas. I don't want to talk about, Netanyahu and Israel and their war. I'm like, hey, this has shed light on one thing. We got to capitalize on this moment and realize with Israel ignoring Biden and with Netanyahu ignoring Biden and doing what he wants, moving into Rafah, as Kamala Harris literally said, we do not sanction this, we do not sponsor this. And Netanyahu can, without retribution, violate U.S. military order. The fact that he can still get billions of dollars from our government in the process. The fact that you have Lauren Boebert saying that there's two nations given by God, the United States and Israel. People are defending our politicians are saying the nations are from God. I'm going, holy crap, this is very serious. We need to capitalize on this, and we need to make sure this country loses its influence and its power over our country.
You're talking about Ukraine or Israel?
Oh, Israel. Ukraine doesn't.
What was that when the politician got up and said Ukraine's border is our border?
I don't.
We control Israel
because
too.
you believe that we control Israel. I don't believe that. So we just differ in opinion.
What makes you think that Joe Biden opposes the action in Rafah when he ordered the construction of a beachhead?
Because he had Kamala Harris, who's his vice president, directly say in an interview that they opposed that.
So
the administration
her words
opposed that.
Trump the invasion that he ordered.
She literally said that we
invaded
opposed
Gaza.
I know, but I'm going by what they. Okay.
But who cares what they say? They're liars. They literally invaded Gaza.
Okay, sure. We don't know what happened behind the scenes. That would be an advance. Then that would prove that Israel controls America, not the other way around. If the administration is saying we don't agree with invading Gaza, and then Israel has troops invade Gaza, then that shows who's in power. If Kamala Harris is saying we don't support this, and they do it anyways, either they're lying or Israel controls the United States military.
There's no logic there.
How is that? How is there no logic there?
Politicians lie all the time. The U.S. military has been funding
Israel. You're
Israel.
assuming that they're lying. Maybe they're not.
They're literally lying.
Okay.
Joe, if you want to believe this one time Joe Biden's telling the truth, oh no, heavens, a bunch of leftist protesters come out and say Israel bad, and then Biden comes out and goes, you're right, they are bad, and then orders a beachhead. That's the deep state. I don't see.
Look, I could maybe we can find a line of agreement there that perhaps what we're looking at is maybe even a universal deep state between the two countries. I'd be more likely than to agree that the United States controls Israel, that there's a deep state that is in control of both countries.
The president of Ukraine came to this country and we gave him more money than we gave Israel.
Yeah, but that's also an act. That's an active war against a larger enemy. I mean, we're not really concerned about Palestinians.
Israel is Iran and Ukraine is Russia.
About Palestinians.
Israel is Iran and Ukraine is Russia.
All right, I digress. I don't know what point you're making. We just disagree fundamentally on who controls.
I believe it is Israel derangement syndrome to think Israel controls the United States. When Ukraine got more money, the president of that country came here specifically and got it. And our politicians have called the Ukraine border our border.
Yeah, because they're so. Can I point to that, actually? That's actually one of the funniest things. To prove that perhaps Israel does have the influence I'm claiming is that same politician, the Democrat congressman who was making that speech about our border. He said this. He first started by talking about how we need to fight for Ukraine because Putin is evil and he's bombing hospitals and schools and he's killing civilians. And so we need to defend Ukraine. and then explains after how that's why we needed to also send money to Israel without really explaining much, which Israel is objectively bombing hospitals and schools. Whether or not they're killing people, we can argue that, but they are bombing the buildings. So he basically made an argument for why we should fund Ukraine, and he switched the argument the exact opposite for why we should fund Israel. I don't know, just leaves a lot of questions.
So what is the singular point in Taiwan, Ukraine, and Israel?
Educate me.
The United States.
Okay.
We give more money to Ukraine, we have over the past 2 years, than we've given to Israel. The president of Ukraine has come to this country, and our politicians have said, your border is our border, Ukraine's border is our border, and we've given them endless billions and billions of dollars. Ukraine controls the United States.
No, that's not true.
What do you mean?
No.
The president of their country came and we gave him $100 billion.
You literally said that we put in our own government. Like we literally co-opted. I know, but I'm saying like that's opposite because I can prove that the United States, that government is literally controlled by the United States. We can prove that because there was a color revolution and we literally put in the government. You just said that earlier. So I wouldn't say that Ukraine controls us because there's evidence. What?
How did Israel get formed?
Okay, that's a really complicated. I mean, you want to go from the very beginning?
We're talking about the Balfour Declaration.
Yeah.
The U.S. and Britain basically creating with military power. I don't see a difference. The idea that Allied powers after World War II creating the liberal economic order, resulting in the creation of Israel for a variety of reasons, along with every other country we've ever invaded for the same thing.
But you think the U.S. and Britain just cared about Israel and that there weren't already like Zionists that had institutional power in the United States that influenced our politicians, that controlled money, that were able to manipulate and maneuver to gain control of that land? Like those people wanted that land for a very long time. And I will admit this, they wanted that land since they were exiled.
So
they wanted to return.
So you think it was after World War II, Zionists pushed influence in Britain and the U.S. to create the formation?
I think before World War II, but I want to be careful here because I don't want to. Some of it could be conjecture, and I also wasn't alive during this time, so I don't want to say anything that would get you in trouble on YouTube, and I also don't want to conjecture on this matter. But I do believe 100% that it was before the war, and even before World War I, where there's been, we can go back to the early 1900s, where Zionists have these manifestos where they do want to return to the homeland. They do want Israel. And to this day, they don't just want the current sliver of land they want to expand. They're expansionists. So I'm saying that I don't think that Israel formed because Britain and the United States were just like, wow, Jews just really need a homeland. We really care about them. That's not what I think happened. I think it's something much more, complicated, I should just say. War is complicated. So, we went through some world wars. There was a Reconstruction period. The United States had leverage. There were many voices at the table on what that Reconstruction looked like. Obviously, Germany was at the bad end of that. We saw Berlin, end up being in the middle of it, right, with a split with the Berlin Wall over the next 20, 30, 40 years. And I would say in the middle of that, some people won and some people lost. And in the end, Israel won. I think that the Zionists won and they got their land and they were able to return. So that's all I think.
I think when you look at the bigger picture of World War I, which did not result in the creation of Israel, and World War II, Israel is ancillary. And the current military spending in the United States, this is what literally makes no sense. You look at a holistic picture of foreign policy, war, and conflict, and Israel is a disproportionately large but still smaller dot on the map, and people are like, nope, Israel, nothing but Israel. And I'm like, okay, sure,
it's pouring out.
Korea, Vietnam, Burma, Laos, none of these things mattered. We spent more money in Vietnam than we've ever spent on Israel with inflation.
Yeah.
Right now, we are spending more money on Ukraine than we're spending on Israel. Woke policies pushed by the Biden administration are rooted in these liberal college groups that like Black Lives Matter that operate alongside Farrakhan, who hates Jews. I'm just like, there's a holistic picture of the U.S. funding so much other things outside of Israel and even things detrimental to it. And it seems like Israel is just a component of the U.S. expansionist liberal economic order policy. The liberal economic order created after World War II is a bunch of powerful global elites from the Allied nations who won saying, World War III would destroy us. What do we do? I got it. We're going to own the world. We're going to create the global police force. You effectively get NATO. The Soviets are resisting and expanding. We go to war with them in a variety of ways. Afghanistan, Korea, etc. The Chinese communists, Taiwan, of course, being the remnant of the original Chinese government. All of that is connected, and Israel is just one small piece of it. But there are people who live in this world where Israel is the center of the universe for some reason, either for or against Israel. And it's like, can you see any other funding bill?
But have you asked why that's the case? Because it seems to be more people than not.
Because there are obsessed people who, I love this. I'll give you an example. Did you know that Luke Rudkowski is Jewish? Well, according to the memes, he's not. He's
I
not.
thought he was like Polish or
but
something.
there are people who post things online where they put stars of
Did he
David.
make it onto one of
He
the
made it on the
posters?
list, along with a whole bunch of other people who are Orthodox, like Greek Orthodox, and not Jewish. And then people believe these things. There's a quote that came from a white supremacist that was purportedly from Voltaire, and everyone just repeats it. Because you have people who are obsessed. They have a derangement. I see Israel derangement syndrome and Trump derangement syndrome as the exact same thing in different ways. It is people who cannot see the big picture because I'll give you an example. A woman walks up to a camera it's a Twitter video screaming, "They're genociding Palestine," just like shrieking. And I'm like, the Uyghur Muslims are being raped and given forced abortions. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on around the world. Why are you screaming at me over this one issue? Why have you become so obsessed with it? Then we had a journalist on here, and people got so angry because I said, can you tell me why it is you know so much about Israel but not Ukraine when we're spending more on Ukraine, more people are dying in Ukraine, more children are dying in Ukraine? And he said, well, because Israel is going to get involved into a war with Iran, and that could be World War III. And I'm like, we're literally at war with Russia. Then you tell me about all the deaths in Gaza, which are bad, but how many children have died in Yemen? Do you?
Well, the Yemen conflict is complicated. I mean, the U.S. has been bombing that for a while. I would say there's probably over 10,000.
100.
You think 100,000 children?
I don't think. That's the reported number.
Oh.
There's over
that went on for a while.
100,000 deaths coming over the past 8 years in Yemen. One of the greatest humanitarian crises in the world. Nobody knows. And I'm just like, dude, when you come to me,
there's not a lot of reporters there, actually.
The Saudis control oil. OPEC controls oil. The U.S. is at the behest of OPEC because we're backed by the petrodollar. And I'm looking at the United States and even Donald Trump saying we're going to give Saudi Arabia their weapons and we're going to bomb a foreign country we're not at war with at their behest. And everyone goes, yeah, but Israel's in charge.
Yeah, but you keep talking about all these things, and it's like, I'm not talking about the war. In fact,
my point is,
I'm saying, tell us about the Christians, being killed in Azerbaijan. Let's talk about there's a lot
That's
going
my
on.
point. That's literally my point.
There's a lot going on. I'm saying, and I feel like this is what I said in the beginning, is that like there were people who were protesting the Palestinian war with Israel. I didn't go to those protests. You won't see me at the leftist protests. I don't have a vested interest in this blood feud between Jews and Palestinians. Okay,
agreed.
So I don't have vested blood interest.
And where we are now is,
but what I do, and I'm not even as concerned. I know we fund a lot of wars. Look at what we did in Iraq, Afghanistan, war crimes as well. I am trying to talk about Israeli influence through AIPAC in the United States. And I would say this, the way that they keep, the reason why people care so much, the reason why it's so much in the news, the reason why it's here is because we are not allowed to criticize Israel because it is anti-Semitic because of the Holocaust. Because why? People who are loyal to Zionism and to Israel have influence in curriculum. They've had influence currently now in running major universities. They have had influence in media. And I'm not going to conspiracies here. I'm not going into anything weird. I'm saying people and a lot of evangelicals are not Jewish, and they are Zionists, and they push this as well.
You understand? Why can't any of these people understand that for 10 years, Islamophobia was a bannable offense on all social media? That Saudi princes were meeting with our leaders, that a Saudi prince had control over Twitter, had investment in it, and they were shutting down our speech and promoting woke ideologies that were working alongside Farrakhan.
I've cared about this.
The issue is, I don't understand this world where Israel is the country that's controlling everything when I don't think Saudi Arabia or Israel is. I think the U.S. is being influenced by a bunch of different nations in a variety of ways. But there are people who genuinely believe AIPAC owns everything, that all of our politicians are controlled by Israel. And I'm like, I could make the same argument in the exact same way for Saudi Arabia. Islamophobia was bannable. I have friends in Hollywood who are Jewish who are putting up pictures of hijab. And I was like, you're Jewish. Why are you putting up Muslim stuff? Muslims, the Hadith, Muhammad said that the hour will only come when the Jews are killed. Why would you support this? And they're like, well, you're not Islamophobic, are you? And I'm like, what does that mean? It's a religion. I'm secular. I don't believe in organized religion. Why would I support Islam? That was 10 years we went through that. And and this is, the Hadith has a passage that says the hour will not come until the servants of Allah fight the Jews And the rocks and the trees will say, "Oh, servant of Allah, there is a Jew hiding behind me, come kill him." Why did all of our corporate press promote and defend that religion if it's controlled by Israel? Why would Israel and Jews allow those messages to become prominent? Now we're seeing TikTok get banned. Yes, that's the pushback. But for 10 plus years, the culture war was promoting Islam. You have women at these universities wearing hijab. That didn't come out of nowhere. So is the argument that the Shiite Wahhabi Muslims are actually in control because of oil backing the US dollar?
Well, I can tell you,
is what
Yeah,
you're
go
saying
ahead.
that before, when you're saying Michael Rappaport finally comes around to it, he supports woke ideology for 10 years, however long this has been going on in Hollywood, and he's just now realizing that it's going to be utilized against him and and who he is, because he didn't catch early that it was actually a bunch of people who had a lot of really negative feelings about Israel.
They support the general woke stuff, gender ideology,
absolutely.
Democrats, and they didn't realize the people who organized and pushed all of that hate Jews and believe, all these things about, the Jews controlling banks and starting all the wars and starting slavery. And now with the anti-Israel protests, people like Mike Rappaport are going, "Oh crap, that's who I was defending?"
Yeah. But that's because they didn't read any farther. They didn't look into it any more than what they saw in the headlines.
They marched through the propaganda.
Yeah, exactly.
Do
And
you
so
hate this stuff, Mary?
A lot of people are commenting, "Let Mary talk," but I'm staying silent, not because I'm not being allowed to talk, but because
She works for APAC. That's why she
I
doesn't
work
wanna...
for APAC. No, but because
She got the call.
I
did I accidentally say Michael Bolton instead of John Bolton?
I
That's
didn't
even
catch
better.
it.
It's even
Yeah.
better if it's Michael Bolton.
He's got
I'm
a,
just
he's got a
not.
song
I'm
called
not
Invader Ron.
educated on any of this, but I feel like I side with Elijah. That's my feeling. I'm going with my gut instinct.
I'm glad Team Mary's on this side.
I'm over here cheering you on.
No, look,
Silently.
And you know what, Tim? Here's the thing that I think that there's no way to win this stuff. Not you, because when it comes to these topics that people are so passionate about, right? People universally take one side, and I'm not accusing you of doing a false equivalency here, and I know you're just being hyperbolic for the sake of making a point. No. I'm saying something. When you said how people saying you made some hyperbolic points. I'm not accusing you of making a false equivalency. You were being hyperbolic, just saying people say Israel controls everything in this, and they do, and people are hyperbolic, and there are the people, I think it was Ryan Long's co-host who made that funny sketch. I'm the guy who makes the posters of the people with the Jew badges on them, telling you who's all the Jews in media. I don't know who does that stuff, right? So
they're fake.
I imagine it's the same people who do anything weird on the internet, people that are, serially online, that go too far into things. What I'm saying is I'm trying to keep the conversation intellectual in that I'm not going to let people say, because I'm concerned what Israel's doing, I'm pro-Hamas, or because I think that IDF arguably could be worse than Hamas. I'll just say that. And I also don't like Hamas either. I think Hamas is bad, and I think the IDF is bad. And I don't care about getting involved in either side of the conflict. What I do care about is where Israel does have interest and invested interest in my life, in my country. And I'm watching today. It's alarming to me that it's only in the last week that major Republicans like Matt Walsh, who I respect a lot, barely started realizing that there have been these new hate speech laws that have been passed around the country.
Ben Shapiro too.
Yeah, but okay, I didn't know. I mean, I've been flying for hours. I only saw a few tweets today. I've been flying I'm literally so jet lagged, but I'm glad they're against it. I'm sure Jeremy Boring is against it too, against the hate speech laws. These laws have been being passed for maybe over a year, but at least the last year in many places, including recently in South Dakota. We saw Ron DeSantis pass similar laws. The attack on our First Amendment from Republicans is what woke me up. So people could be like, there'll always be people like, you just hate the Jews, or you love Hamas. I get both of those, or they accuse me of being an Israeli shill. I go, you know what? I realize that getting in this Democrat versus Republican argument is ridiculous. If a group has the power to get people, whether they're Democrat or Republican, to pass laws to adopt a infinitely discernible definition of something that can violate the main religion, the true religion of America, and I believe the only true religion, Christianity, and it doesn't matter their political party, you have women and men, you have veterans and first-time politicians going down and saying, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to accept this. I go, hold up, a lot of issues matter, the border still matters, Go argue your hatred of Jews, your hatred of Palestinians. I don't care. This group needs to go, and they need to go now, because this is encroaching on our First Amendment, and it passed with almost universal unanimity. Like they all voted on it across the board. That is scary to me, and goes, the United States is not in control of itself. That's all I'm saying, and woke me up.
Do you remember when Steven Crowder went to Dearborn, Michigan, to try and get the Muslims to bake a transgender cake?
I don't remember that, but that sounds like
and they all refused, and there was no support.
Yeah, they hate the gays.
Well, the Christian baker, no, I mean is the left. They said good. But when they went to the Christian baker in Colorado, they said, we're going to sue him into oblivion, and we're going to go after him. So
it's the colonial religion. You
have, for whatever reason, Islam is protected in this country.
100%, because they're a minority.
Yes, that's what I was saying earlier. It all goes back to who they believe is the most oppressive class here in America, which is still white Christian males.
So this is why you end up with Islamophobia being a bannable offense. Mm-hmm. It's why you end up with wokeness in general.
And it's why it's so disconnected, and why none of it seems to make any sense, because it doesn't come back to any logical conclusion about what they believe. It's just go from one issue to the next one and then weigh it against who they believe did more in the case of oppressing in that specific instance.
Can I be careful? I want to be really careful in saying this, because you are on YouTube and I'm not going to get you in trouble. I want to frame it like this. The reason why I believe people like Joel Berry or Seth Dillon or people are seeing what they call a rise in anti-Semitism, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and why I believe a genuine, you mentioned this earlier, I'll use your own words, like these dangerous Jewish conspiracies are sort of like on the rise, or what they're explaining. The reason why I think some of these ideas are finding themselves a home in both more fundamental left and fundamental right, and why the move is going against just being anti-Zionist, anti-Israel, into being against Jewish institutional power, is because you have multiple cultural wars going on right now. And I want to just point out, I'm not sharing my own personal views or the views of the show, but this is what I believe from looking at it is happening. Is you have like a war of woke, you have the war of the United States, I guess you could be like banning TikTok, banning our constitutional amendments. These are big issues. These are domestic problems with corruption in our government and foreign lobbying. When you talk about wokeness, etc., what people are seeing is whether you're against the Zionism problem and you're on the right side of the pro-Israel protest and you don't like those people and you see them as Jewish and Zionist, and then you see the left woke, you see them as communist, Bolshevik, aka Jewish origin or Jewish funded, like Soros suppressed. What you're seeing is two sides, Jewish influenced, Jewish origin, Jewish funded, fighting against each other. You don't support either, and you go, oh, we don't have an Israel problem. We have a Jewish problem. And I think that's like the Kanye thing. He was on your show. That's what I've seen, is that, so then people that are talking about Zionism are talking about one half. People that are talking about woke are talking about one half. And they disagree on woke and disagree on Zionism, but they both see a problem with Jewish-led, Jewish-influenced and funded ideas and ideologies that are subverting and undermining society. So then they go, so the people come out of the mainstream right, mainstream left, that's confusing, mainstream right, mainstream left, and they go, hold up, these Jews are getting us to fight against each other, and they're getting us to disagree on different issues, but in the end, what do we have a problem with? It's these Jewish bankers, these Jewish media outlets, yada, yada. And so then they come here, and this is why you're seeing the fundamental right and left sort of hold similar ideology. They're going, anyone who doesn't call it a Jewish problem is a Shabbos goy, or is fighting against the system, or they're fighting for the system, and it's our prerogative to try to wake the people up on our side. So that's why they're really ardent about it, and just like, hey, you guys are all fighting left versus right, Republican versus Democrat, Zionist versus anti-Zionist, capitalist versus communist, but you're all still just fighting Jews. And that's what I read and what I see. And again, I'm going to point out to your YouTube censors, that's not the views of the show or myself or anyone in particular.
People are saying that online.
That's what people on the fundamental right and left are saying. And that's what I think people like Seth Dillon and Joel Berry, who are vocal, pro-Jewish people that are Christian and whatever, are getting confused about, is that a lot of people that are stuck in the dichotomy of left and right or one of these fights aren't really seeing where these guys are coming from. And to them, it just seems like racist hatred. But these people are feeling like they're trying to liberate their own party and maybe even find universal peace by a common issue. So that's that's my best. Maybe you disagree with me, but that's my diagnosis of the current social problem, or why
I agree. That's what
anti-Semitism
they're
is
saying.
rising.
I think your assessment is completely correct. I think the idea is bad, and it's going to harm these people in the long run because it's pointing their work efforts into a direction that won't do anything for them. I think if they were to start a business, work out, exercise, eat healthy, get away from the cities, I'm not saying go live on a farm and have chickens, but that's a good start. If they found a way to actually just build up their families and their lives, they could find themselves wealthy, successful, and with great political influence. Instead, what they're doing is they're going online and accusing an ethnic group of being the root of the ideology or the progenitor of the conflict between them, which won't actually make their lives better.
Well, look what happened to Nick Fuentes. He tried, though. I mean, I think it actually makes me sad to see people depersoned on either side of the political spectrum. But Nick Fuentes actually makes me genuinely sad because I went to dinner with him one time in Chicago, non-political, just like you would meet up with anybody. And I got to talk to him about his life. I won't say anything here. Just a normal guy, like just a normal guy, nice guy, well-mannered, very respectful to the people. You know, his last name's Fuentes. I always thought that's funny. He's the face of the white supremacy movement to the left. His last name's Fuentes. It's not a very white name. But, you know, I talked to him, and I really believe that he believes what he thinks about this issue. And I think what you said is true. I think that he's actually intellectual. He understands his prognosis. I'm sure you guys disagree, but I don't think that the way he's been painted and the reflection of him has been fair. And I think that adds to a lot of the conspiracy around Jewish people and things, people that try to point out the real problem. And I think he's been pretty accurate early on a lot of diagnoses of things. When they use his followers and what random bots will say on the internet to define what he says, I think that's my point. A lot of the way people are treating this adds to more of the issue because the way the media presents this issue makes people further think, oh, Jews are in control of the media. It is a Jewish problem. And it becomes more concerning. And I have to be so careful in how I word this. I think whatever has happened is not going to switch back unless powers that be create a large global event like a reconstruction. I think too many people see the problem as a Jewish power problem and not an Israel problem. And I think that's going to be the fastest growing side of the left and the right currently. And the gatekeepers on both sides are not talking with these people. They're shaming them.
They're making it worse.
They're calling them idiots and racists and anti-Semites. And instead of addressing the concerns they have about Jewish power, look, if Jewish power is not there, then prove it and tell them. And you don't have to debate me, bro. They don't have to go on your show. You don't have to platform them. You owe them nothing. But please, if these people are wrong, disprove them.
How?
Well, that's not up to me. I'm saying if you're saying they're stupid and they're wrong, you have to prove they're wrong. But by calling them names, you're emboldening them. So if they're dangerous and they're a threat and they're going to cause problems, like I'm trying to be as serious as I can here because I'm not always a serious guy. I'm retarded too. So it's like hard to explain myself sometimes. But if the gatekeepers on both the left and the right, the establishment media and the establishment media on the right, really believe that these people are disgusting anti-Semites, that they are going to cause a world war, they're going to cause another Holocaust, we don't want to see anybody dead, and that they're tearing apart our country, and they have a very false and vitriolic and disgusting ideology, then can you please do more than calling them anti-Semites and racists and taking Cookie Monster jokes out of context? Also, fuck you. Sorry, I shouldn't cuss on YouTube, but F you if you think Cookie Monster jokes offend you. You're too weak. These gatekeepers have lost, and the problem is now they've lost so much power. You could be a guy with 6-7 million followers, one of the most influential guys like Ben Shapiro, just getting roasted and ratioed no matter what you post on any social media platform by now the left and the right under your posts. I never thought I'd see the day.
It's fake. Some of it's real.
Some of it is fake, but I think I talk to people and a lot of people think this stuff.
I think Fuentes has fake fans. I think we have talked about this before. I think there are people who go online claiming to be fans of Fuentes, but try desperately to make it so that nobody wants to associate with him by being violent intentionally.
I could believe that 100%.
But what do they believe?
The followers?
Yeah.
I'm saying that there are people who are masquerading as followers of Fuentes who hate what he thinks, hate who he is, and they're doing it to make sure that no one will platform Nick.
That's hard to believe.
If true, that tactic would work for.
If that were true, then Nick foments some of the most vile people. Yeah. I don't think that I watched Nick debate Destiny, parts of it. I've seen him give debates. He has coherent thoughts. I think he's wrong on a lot of things. That's fine. But I think when he argues, he's talking about here's what happened in history and here's what I think. Then his followers go online and start sending vile, awful things to people, which I won't repeat. I'm like, I don't think those are actually fans of his, because all they're doing is ensuring that no show will ever have him on. If those are actually his fans, then he's a victim of his own following.
I don't know. I think that they're probably genuine.
Well, then
a lot of them are teenagers.
Then he's destroyed himself. There was a period where he asked his followers to stop spamming us because we literally were like, we get attacked relentlessly by people claiming to be fans of his. And he was like, guys, what are you doing? Stop. They don't. So you go to any...
what do you mean? Can you, because I'm going to be fair and just like hear you out here. What do you mean by they're fake, and who would be behind this? Like, is it a
That's
country?
what I'm trying to find out.
Leftists?
But what does that mean, leftists?
There are leftists that are running
it.
like Groyper accounts.
Yeah.
That's what you think?
It is a fact that leftists run sock puppet accounts. That's not in dispute.
Okay.
It is a fact that there have been people on the right and the left who have made accounts masquerading as the opposing side to make them look bad. That's been known about for a long time. In fact, we know the U.S. government does the exact same thing.
Are there people who pose as fans of yours who do that?
Probably.
Do you think they do that?
I would imagine.
I don't know.
Beanie Groyper? 69-420?
The idea. So you genuinely think that leftists aren't trying to get Nick banned?
Well, I don't think that they're running Groyper accounts trying to do that. No.
You don't think that a leftist would make a fake account and then say a whole bunch of really awful things that Nick never said so that Nick gets banned?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, they do that. That's a fact.
As under like sock accounts of his fans, I don't buy that. No.
But it is a fact. This happens.
How do you know that though?
So first of all, being from the hacker community and hanging out at many different hacker spaces and in social engineering specifically, being at Occupy Wall Street and in the direct action meetings, I have watched them run sock puppet accounts. I have been in the IRC chats where they do this intentionally. I've not seen anyone say, I'm going to make a Groyper account and attack Nick Fuentes, but I'll tell you this. The idea that Nick or everyone else is immune to sock puppetry is an absurdity. We know it's a common activist psyop tactic. We know the U.S. military has been doing this for a long time. We know that Barrett Brown ran a group called Project PM, which uncovered the U.S. Air Force buying sock puppet accounts from U.S. private actors. So my point is, knowing this is a common practice among activist groups and among private security contractors, the idea that the people who go on and send rape threats to someone are legitimate Nick fans, if that's true, then I understand why Nick is banned from everywhere. Totally get it. But I actually think when I watch Nick debate Destiny, for instance, or Nick have, speaking with Milo or anything like that, I'm like, here's a guy who genuinely believes what he thinks that I disagree with. And then you look at a follower sending death threats to someone's children and rape threats to their children. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that person actually likes Nick because they're damaging
Can I say
him.
this? So as knowing Nick personally, I know that Nick condemns all calls of violence, like anyone here on this table.
Then why would
any
his
rape
fans?
threats? Well, listen to me. I think there's something like there's really an important lesson in this. There's something really important. I blame the gatekeepers of the right-wing movement for the toxicity of many of the anonymous accounts that follow Nick more than I would ever blame Nick. Because it is them who, instead of giving Nick a platform, pushed Nick into the recesses of the internet. And, he's made a resurgence, and good for him on that. Because if his ideas were false, they would have proved them wrong already, and he would have went away. But what I'm saying is, they pushed him into this area where he had to go into alt tech and all these sites to push himself. Now, during those formative years, who would have been on alt tech? It would have been when the censorship wasn't bad on social media, like it was the last 4 or 5 years. Who would have been on alt tech? It wouldn't have been you or me. I use alt tech now. It would have been people who probably were calling for rape and calling for violence and people who were insane. So number one,
Okay.
he's going to, because he's going to alt tech in the early stages where that's the main audience, which we're all on Rumble now, maybe you're not, we're all using alt tech. He's going to latch on to a certain group of people and make them feel seen and known, which is normal, that are going to latch on. So those people that got pushed off, they pushed Nick into those scenes. He might have gotten some of those people who felt heard, who felt listened to, but also, can we stop taking random commenters on the internet so seriously? Like somebody saying to me, I'm going to kill you, you bastard, which I get that kind of stuff all the time, is not a valid death threat. Or I'm going to come to your house. They'll tell me where I live and say I'm going to kill you. And I don't even report it to the police because the reality is...
Okay, so let's go back because we're derailing.
No. I'm saying this. I'm saying...
I get your point.
People really, because they can't beat Nick, they focus a lot on his followers, which
Okay,
he would even... he would condemn the toxicity of them, because if I have followers and someone says, dude, your followers call me the N-word, I'd say, dude, oh, that's terrible. I would condemn
All right,
that.
so then I take it back. I agree with both of you. Nick has fomented an audience that threatens to rape and murder people's children.
No, I didn't say he fomented. I'm saying
No,
it's not
an
him.
audience. I didn't say he did.
I'm saying it's not him, because if there's anybody that follows him that's acting retarded like that, I blame the gatekeepers for, instead of inviting him to the table to discuss,
Right.
pushed him into the dark parts of the web.
So
and now he's
okay.
mainstream.
The way
His
that
followers are
like
much
Charlie
more normal.
Kirk talked about them back in 2019 was so
Called
crazy.
them unhuman. They
Like-
called these people unhuman. They were not real.
And a
These
lot
people
of
are
them, they're
fake.
literally
Right, so my
minors.
point is...
Yeah, they're a lot of them are
My
teenagers.
point is, certainly, as the saying goes, on the internet, no one knows you're 14. I'm saying that I don't believe people who genuinely agree with Nick's point of view are hunting people, like going to people's profiles and threatening to rape their children. I think that's someone trying to smear and make Nick look bad. But if I could be wrong about that,
Do you think there's just like autistic teenagers who are like,
I think
using like some sort of like a scrambler of an IP and seeing what they can
what
get
do you
away
mean
with?
scrambler of an IP? You make a fake Twitter account. You make a fake profile on Instagram. What are you talking about?
I was more just talking about emailing people because that's what I've seen.
Look,
more
look,
of,
it's
so.
really simple. I just assumed that because I don't watch Nick's stuff, I assumed that he was telling people not to do this, and his
Yeah, he
fans.
is.
But okay, so that's why my point is. It seems strange then that Nick would say to my fans, "Don't do this," and then they would. That says to me they're probably just leftists trying to make him look bad running sock accounts. But if you guys think that's too far-fetched, then I'll just defer to you and say Nick's audience sends death threats and rape threats to people's children. Do you think that's true?
I mean,
That's your position, right, Mary?
Wait,
you
what?
you think groypers threaten to rape children regularly?
I don't really pay attention to what groypers are doing.
was there an
So-
instance
so-
of this? Was there somebody that was?
I'm not gonna.
I really don't know
I'm
who
not
you're
gonna direct.
referring
I'm not
to.
gonna. There's a
Wait,
couple.
who did they threaten?
Is this the same girl we're thinking of?
They're-
That they
they're-
attacked,
Who did
they
they
attacked her
threaten?
kids?
There's a few people I'm not going to mention because they'll get more rape and death threats. I don't.
Yeah, you don't have
think-
to mention them.
Well,
I'm
I
just
have
wondering.
no idea.
I don't think the rape and death threats are coming from Nick's fans. I think it's someone trying to smear him to make sure that shows don't want to associate with him because they're scared of getting rape and death threats. But I will say, I'm wrong, you're right.
No,
Nick's audience sends death threats to people's children.
I just don't think on the internet, like, I have a different view of the internet. Like, this may come off, maybe I'm from the original internet, but I'm from the day where everybody called each other the N-word with the hard R on Xbox Live. And you're going, so your audience says they're going to rape, your audience says that people are going to, or let's take this back. Microsoft's customers, people who use Microsoft products and playing
What?
Halo online are... Microsoft
Let's
supports rape.
slow
But I'm
down
saying
real quick.
Microsoft supports people are going to rape, your mothers.
let's
and
slow
say the
down
N-word.
right now.
Yeah.
Getting a phone call or getting emails and getting messages where they post an address and say they're going to rape your children is messed up.
Well, yeah. No
I
one
don't
would say
think
that.
Nick's fans are doing that.
Let's argue that someone who would really like Nick or would be a real fan and isn't autistic and
wouldn't do
retarded
that.
wouldn't do that. Yes,
That's
that
my
is
point.
true.
So who's doing
But-
it? It must be someone trying to make
sure
him
there
look
could
are,
be people
there
that
are
enjoy him
normal
still.
people who like Nick, and there are weird people who like Nick. And why is that so hard to believe?
So then I will stop and we can move on. And I defer to Mary and agree. Nick's fans send rape threats to
Don't they
people's
do that
children.
to you sometimes? Like, oh, he watched Tim Pool and he did this, and like this person like watched Candace Owens and they
This
shot
is
up
literally
Christchurch,
my
and it's like,
point. They're not his fans. I don't understand why you both are
I
arguing
was
that
saying
Nick's
they're
fans
probably
are
his
doing
viewers.
this.
I guess it's just a definition of fan. Like you can't control who's your fan, basically. So I'm sure there's some
I'm
crazy.
saying they hate
people.
him. I'm saying they hate him. They want to hurt him.
I would say they don't know that they're doing that, but yes, they're hurting
I mean,
him. They're
you're more
retarded. If you're
likely
doing that,
to-
stop doing that to you. If you like a creator, I'll just say, if you like a creator and you're trying to support them, don't threaten to rape and kill their enemies.
If
Thank you.
If it's a
That's why I don't
sock
believe this.
account, if it's a sock account pretending to be a groyper, it's more likely to be a Fed than a leftist, right?
What's the difference?
Because the Feds are trying to entrap I guess
there's no
the
functional
genuine
difference.
fans into criminalizing themselves.
Right. So my point ultimately is it's someone trying to get him banned or get people to disassociate with him because they don't like what he brings. Look, I'll tell you this. You talk to any podcaster and they know that the moment you say Fuentes, they're in for a world of hurt because they're going to get attacked relentlessly. And that's why people don't want him on their show.
Just because of ego or what?
No,
Or
because Fuentes'
advertisers?
followers cause economic damage to businesses that mention his name. It's not even about whether, like, the moment his name comes up on a podcast, people know it's like, okay, call the security guards. We're going to need 2 extra guys. It's going to cost another $100,000.
Was that what you're going to do now?
So I'm not going to speak specifically as to Nick, but I can tell you that when his name comes up on the show, it causes problems for us. For me, I'm willing to say it on the show because I'll tell people what's going on. But this is the reality that a lot of shows won't tell you. They're going to be like, if you mention him on the show, I'm going to have to deal with it and call a security guard. We're going to get phone calls. We're going to get emails. And then we're going to have to call the police. Then we're going to have a security guard 24 hours. That's going to cost, like, big shows. If you're talking about 24-hour security with this could be millions of dollars. And so a lot of people are just like, it's easy for a smaller YouTuber, smaller podcast where it's like a guy in a small production team. But for bigger companies, they won't go anywhere near Nick because of this. And that's why I'm like, I don't think those are his fans.
I had problems for having on my show. Like, I'm not going to get into the details, but like, yeah, there was even a lawsuit involved that was in part mentioned and was largely mentioned, the problem of having Nick Fuentes on. And I've seen that is true. So having Nick Fuentes on, I would say having Nick Fuentes on has hurt my life financially and caused problems for me. But to me, it's more the ethics, but I don't blame anyone because I have lost a lot of money over the years. Even recently, I lost 6 figures because of my position on Israel to get a good investment into my show. We have a new project we're working on. I can talk about that a little bit later, but the people were just very pro-Zionist and they didn't want to put the money involved. And I just said, look, I'm not going to change my view on this subject. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm saying what I think is true, and we're going to stick to that. I've always had Nick on knowing that it could cause problems. It did cause problems. So I don't blame people who don't. And this is where I think people that don't have anything to lose become self-righteous. And this is why I don't judge people. Because you know what? Losing shit or having problems in your life, or even just losing an advertiser because you wanted to have a guest on your show. Most shows, their goal is not free speech. Their goal is not to talk to controversial figures. Their goal is to make money and to make entertainment. And if that entertainment gets in the way of making money, then they don't want to have them on. So I don't blame people whose goal is to make money not having them on.
We only have a few minutes. And I do want to read some super chats, and you do got Australian gifts, which is a total 180 in the conversation. But two things happen when you have Nick Fuentes on the show. The first is you get security threats. And this means that for anyone who's got employees or contractors and insurance, you now have an obligation to spend what could be hundreds of thousands of dollars because of those threats, and you don't know how long that will last. The second is the advertisers get attacked, which means you won't even have the money to hire the security in the first place. My point, and then we'll go to super chats and your gifts just to wrap things up, is I don't really believe that Nick's fans are destroying him this way. I think it's the people who hate him who are trying to cause problems to make that happen. But maybe I'm wrong. How about you bring up your goodies while I pull up super chats?
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to say this, but first I'll give the nice gift. I brought for the group here a Cape Byron Australian single malt whiskey. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit under the weather. I just got off a 30-hour flight from Australia. My nose is
Whiskey helps with that.
Clogged. People are like, he's on the dust. I need some actually. Nah, but whiskey would help. But I got this. So this is for Tim. You can have that. I'll just leave that over there. And then we have a couple things we got to do at the table here.
I don't drink though.
I know, but it's for the team.
Right, we'll have it on the...
People do drink here. Okay, so we're going to do a couple things, a couple taste tests here for people. So I brought some kangaroo meat. This is actually... I was able to pass customs. I brought kangaroo meat. Here you go. There you go. And I also brought crocodile meat as well. We're going to taste test them. You got to rate them through 10. Like, let's just say like 10 is a really good steak. 5 is a dry piece of chicken.
All right.
So that's kangaroo.
7, 8.
7 or 8 on the kangaroo. Pass it around first. Let's try it.
No, wait, it's mine.
All right.
You got to try the kangaroo.
I'm not like super excited to eat kangaroo.
Have you seen how gross crocodile looks too? It's like looks like it shouldn't be eaten.
I will try kangaroo. I will not try crocodile.
Why
Are you
not?
Mormon or something?
I've had alligator.
Just try it. Just try crocodile. You can never try it because it's not good.
Alligator's good.
Hold.
I'm gonna say this truthfully. It's like a 2 or 3. Crocodile. It's
Really?
The
It's
crocodile
upsetting.
is just heavily seasoned.
I bet it's good.
it's upsetting.
Oh, it looks terrible.
It's absolutely upsetting. That
I
is
think
not
the crocodile might actually taste
good. Did you
better
try
than
it?
the
Wait,
kangaroo.
Mary, go to the Mary cam. Mary, try crocodile.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take a good
it
bite.
looks so
Delicious.
bad.
It's
Yeah,
like
I think the crocodile is actually better than the kangaroo.
This is so good.
eat it. Come on.
It tastes like it tastes like Thanksgiving stuffing.
You gotta
Yeah.
like try it. You gotta say you like actually tried there.
Yeah, that's a 3.
What? That's an 8.
Yeah. And then
What did you say? Like Christmas
Oh
stuffing?
yeah, I have the kangaroo.
Thanksgiving
I've
stuffing.
had a
It
lot of
literally is.
kangaroo.
Yeah.
It's exactly like Thanksgiving stuffing.
Yeah. It's based.
Okay. Kangaroo also I can't get into it. I've had kangaroo burgers a few times and it just tastes like
Do they farm kangaroos?
they're just everywhere.
Mary said on the show
like
earlier today that
roaming
she's more
black kids
scared
in
of
America.
kangaroos than she is of bears.
Yeah,
Because we were
they
talking
get
about
in
man
fist
versus
fights.
bear debate.
Dude, they're both amazing.
Next taste
Wait,
test.
are those crackers good?
Yes, they're actually gonna try. I ate one. All right, so I brought some Vegemite. You've
Nope.
had Vegemite, right?
Nope.
You've
Yeah,
had it.
I have. I won't eat
You've
it.
had Vegemite.
Oh, no,
Have you
I
had
haven't.
Vegemite?
If Tim says no, I'm not eating.
No, he's already eaten it.
What?
No, you have to try. So
I've
I want
had
people to know this.
Decide
If you don't
for
know
yourself,
this,
Brett.
Vegemite is black, which is like not a lot of food are black. Here, I'm gonna give it to you on a cracker.
But
I
isn't
like
it
the
supposed to
crocodile
be
better.
like a very specific presentation?
No,
for,
it can go on a
for
cracker.
Vegemite?
No, it's fine. Here, hand this to her. That's you gotta just. I didn't touch that. I didn't touch the tip. So she said.
That's what she said. Damn it.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So you gotta try that. Here we go. You gotta try this too.
That's like
Go ahead and take a nice bite there.
it's not a lot.
No, it shouldn't be a lot. It should be,
looks
be
like
on toast, but
it
I
looks
didn't
like
have toast.
motor oil. Like, I don't know.
It is like motor oil. I think it's like alien waste.
Doesn't taste like anything.
What do you think? Do you want to try some?
I've had it many times.
Oh, okay.
It's like the.
I'm leaving it here.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
that's
leaving
good.
us here. Okay, and
You've got to spread it thin on toast. Right?
Yes, that's what it is. But I also brought. I did bring some snacks, which you guys can have later. By the way, this is the best
No,
one
I'll
from
take
New
it now.
Zealand.
Give me the best one.
Yeah, that one's the best one. That one's, and this is the second best one. And then everyone else can have these ones. We got cherry ripes, Boost, Violet Crumble. But here's this. So this is a gift for the studio, and this is actually really important because this is the kind of stuff that Aboriginals have donated to Australian society, and this is a real certified kangaroo scrotum bottle opener. It's true. There was a flask, but I didn't know if anyone really wanted to drink out of kanga balls. But this is a real scrotum. So you grab life by the balls and you open up a bottle, and you can now say you've touched kangaroo's balls. So this is actually really cool. These are actually really expensive too. So
Now this is
is
good.
great. Yeah, that's delicious. And yeah, that's delicious. All of these are good. I kind of
Wait, the coconut kicked in. Never mind.
You don't like coconut?
Oh, so good.
Well, we have Turkish Delight as well, which I think that's in isn't Turkish Delight?
Those are the best.
Yeah, Turkish Delight, Cherry Ripe.
Those are so good.
Here, try this one.
I've had Turkish delight and turkey.
Try this one.
Wait, this is chocolate?
Boost.
This is chocolate covered Turkish delight.
Yeah, it's the Australian one. I'm not eating the rest of my kangaroo and stuff. It's
all right.
disgusting.
Those ones I grew up in South Africa. The little violet.
I just felt like we need to, but you need to keep this scrotum safe. It needs to be in a good place.
You're leaving it here?
Yeah, it's for you guys.
we'll put it at the bar.
It's a scrotum bottle opener. If anyone,
Now I know this is legit.
Yeah, that's just they don't have a lot of those flavors here of Cadbury, but that's obviously Australia and UK. They love Top
Oh,
Deck.
sorry.
What do you think? What was the best
Boost
so far?
is good.
Coconut.
Yeah, I thought the coconut one's my favorite too. They have some of the bars here, the Whitaker bars, but we just have a lot more flavors. It's all good.
Boost is good.
I ate all that. I got a ton of those at home. I just want you to rate what you think the chocolates are, because you guys have Australians watching for sure, and Kiwis.
So the chocolate in other countries is way better. That's what they say.
There's just less toxins.
What are the toxins?
Well, like if you look at the
Like-
cereal, like they just don't sell most American cereal because it's illegal. You know what I mean? Or like you look at like bread, and like bread doesn't have sugar in it. You know, it's just like wheat and salt. you
Or
know?
the
Really good.
the Subway bread, which is not even classified as bread, it's
Yeah.
classified as cake.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. I will say this, by the way, the weirdest thing I thought too, dude, I had a weird, I did have a weird white girl moment today where I went to the cafe at my hotel and she was like, do you want a small or a large latte? And I go, oh, does the small have 1 shot and the large has 2 shots? She's like, no, the small has 2 shots and the large has 3 shots. And I said, show me the cups. And I forgot that, I just forgot that people here think that it's the chemicals in the food that are making them fat, but coffees are this big. And it's like, the portions here, I know I'm an American, I've only been gone for a couple of years, but I hadn't ordered a drink here in years. And I literally forgot that in every other country, you order a small and it's like a children's size. A medium's like a Mary size. And then a large is like a small, And so you're just getting 20% of the calories at any other... Everything you drink here is just...
don't put milk and sugar in the coffee then.
Well, you can put milk, but I saw some fat black chick that is walking around DC.
Hey, I don't know why it's relevant that she's black.
Oh, because she was strutting with confidence, and there's nobody more confident
fat
than
white women don't strut.
They're not with confidence. Fat black women are the most confident women in the world. We will know how a woman's mind works before we know how fat black women are so confident. But I will say she was walking strutting, and she had this it's a joke, Tim. She had this 36-ounce Starbucks cup. You could see all the syrups in it and stuff. And I was looking at it. I was like, damn, that could feed Mary for 2 days. That's enough calories for 2 days. People here just eat too damn much.
Okay, so we didn't get any super chats, and the problem is it is Friday, but I'm flying to Mar-a-Lago, so I can't stick around. And I was trying to find one good super chat of just everyone saying Elijah was right and telling me that I was wrong.
No. People said you won. A lot of people said Tim won.
I saw both.
Yeah, it's both.
I'll just concede to my host here and say, Tim, I appreciate you. I appreciate you not capitulating to your guests and sticking to your guns. And I think a lot of people, the complaints that they'll have sometimes is that they'll have about you is what I appreciate, because people don't know what it's like in the room, and you have to be assertive and communicate your points. And a lot of hosts just agree with anyone who's on their show and just go see,
I agree.
So just agree. But
Tim does too.
doesn't
It's just
care.
you, actually. Other days, Tim, it's really just you.
Yeah, Tim never has a.
Tim doesn't ever disagree with anyone. He just sees you and he's
I was like,
no,
ooh, Elijah, I'm just going to tell me you're wrong.
Not
No,
today,
Tim's
dude.
actually really nice to me off camera. People don't know that.
Tim actually agrees with you. He just doesn't want people to know.
He just had Ben Shapiro give me a call before I came on, so he's like, "Hey," he's on the phone. He's like, "Hello, did you buy my sheets yet?" He didn't even ask me not to say anything.
Well, the reality is, Ben hired Elijah to play devil's advocate to make a good show.
Yeah,
People are going to believe that, even though I'm joking.
Signing
it
that
happens.
blood pact when you got here. That was the
I
problem.
signed the Shabos Goy blood contract in Christian blood.
The joke before the show is that we have what do you call it? Like a training session that guests have to go through. That's hosted by Ben Shapiro, and they open a tablet, and Ben's being like, "Now here's what you need to understand about Israel," and then you have to answer questions, and if you pass, we let you come in the room.
There's a big Star of David on the back of the tablet.
Instead of an Apple logo.
Ben Shapiro pisses me off, but I kind of love that he exists because I like to just read his tweets and be like, "The hell are you talking about, brother?" But I do appreciate, by the way, anyone who doesn't capitulate, because he's under a lot of pressure, and the fact that he has so many people disagreeing with him and he's doubling down. All the respect to every commentator who sticks to what they believe despite it being popular enough. That's all I gotta say.
Do you want to shout anything out before we wrap up?
Oh, yeah. I would love to. A couple things, guys. You should follow me at censor.tv. I mostly only stream on Rumble. My show's called Slightly Offensive. I'm with Gavin McGinnis this weekend in New York. We're doing street content. You should check it out, Censor TV. And also, I have this new project called A Vigilant News. It's doing so well. We're doing several million views a week already, which is fantastic. We've grown our page to almost 100,000 followers in less than 6 months, and we're open up a big office, and it's just doing so well. You should check it out on Rumble. It's on the Gateway Pundits Rumble, and of course Vigilant News on X.
Guys, you can follow me at Brett Dasovic on Instagram and on Twix. But more importantly, guys, go and check out Pop Culture Crisis. We are live Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on YouTube. Look, politics can be a drag sometimes, and sometimes you need to step back and actually have fun for once. It is possible to do both, and I think you'll like a lot of the stuff that we talk about. We do talk about celebrities, but we talk about cultural issues, all those things, and we try to keep it as light and fun as possible, so go and check us out.
Yes, what he said. And we had Zuby on the show today. Sorry he couldn't be here, but it was a great episode, so you should check it out. Also, you can send me validation on Instagram at Mary Archived, or you can send me hate on X. That is also Mary Archived.
Yep. Good evening, y'all. Cheers.
All right, everybody. Follow the show. Follow at Timcast. Follow at Timcast on Instagram and X. Timcast IRL on Rumble. That one's important. Subscribe to this channel. Become a member at timcast.com because the show only functions because you guys are members. And I'm going to go hop on a plane and fly to Mar-a-Lago, and I'll see y'all then.